Imagine for a moment that you are standing waist-deep in the calm, clear water of a swimming pool. In your hands, you hold a large, colorful beach ball, and you are trying with all your might to hold it under the surface. Feel the strain in your arms, the tension in your shoulders, the clenching in your jaw. Your entire focus, your entire world, narrows down to this one single, exhausting task: keeping that buoyant ball from rising. This struggle, this constant, draining effort, is the hidden state in which most of us live our lives. The beach ball represents the feelings we've been told are unacceptable, the emotions we don't want to face. It is our fear, our anger, our grief, our shame. We spend so much of our precious life force holding these things down, pushing them into the dark water of our subconscious, and then we stand back, drenched and exhausted, wondering why we feel so stuck, so tired, so disconnected from the joy of living. The problem, you see, isn't truly found in the external events that seem to cause these feelings. The difficult job, the strained relationship, the mounting bills. The real issue, the source of the exhaustion, is the immense internal pressure we generate by resisting the natural flow of our own emotions. We have been taught to be strong, to think positive, to just get over it. But these well-intentioned ideas often curdle into a form of self-tyranny, a constant act of suppression. We build an invisible prison of our own making, its walls fortified by denial and resistance. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, keeps sending us messages, presenting us with situations designed to show us what we're holding on to. But we are often too busy, too consumed with the struggle of holding the ball underwater, to ever truly hear the message or see the lesson. But what if there was another way? What if the path to freedom wasn't through more effort, more control, or more resistance? What if the solution was profoundly simple? What if right now you could just let go? What if you could simply release your grip and allow the ball to gently rise to the surface, to bob in the sunlight, and to finally be free? This is not an act of weakness, but an act of supreme power. This is the pathway of surrender. A simple, yet life-altering mechanism gifted to us by the late Dr. David R. Hawkins in his masterwork, Letting Go. Through this audiobook experience, we will embark on a journey together, not just to understand this concept intellectually, but to learn the practical, tangible technique of release. This isn't just about listening to a book, it's about acquiring a tool that can dissolve the energetic chains that have bound you, clearing the way for the peace, clarity, and inner prosperity that is your birthright. Before we embark on our journey through the inner landscapes of emotion, we must first be equipped with the primary tool, the key that unlocks every door from the dungeon of shame to the balcony of peace. This tool is what Dr. Hawkins called the mechanism of letting go, or the technique of surrender. And its profound power lies in its radical simplicity. In a world that constantly tells us to do more, to think harder, to analyze deeper, and to struggle smarter, this mechanism asks us to do something quite different. It asks us to stop doing and simply allow. It is an unlearning of a lifetime of conditioning, a gentle return to the natural way your psyche was designed to process experience. This is not a complex mental exercise. It is not a belief system you must adopt, nor is it a philosophy you must debate. It is a tangible, physical, and deeply felt experience, available to you in any moment, with any feeling that arises. So what, precisely, is this mechanism? It can be understood as a sequence of inner postures, a conscious choice to relate to your feelings in a new way. The first step is to simply recognize the feeling that is present, and to identify it without a story. This is a crucial first distinction. Our minds are masterful storytellers. A knot in the stomach appears, and instantly, the mind creates a narrative about the email you have to send, the argument you had yesterday, the bill that's due next week. The practice of letting go asks you to gently sidestep that story, just for a moment, and turn your attention to the raw feeling itself. Simply name it. This is anxiety, or I can feel anger rising, or there is a wave of sadness here. This simple act of identification, of naming, creates a tiny sliver of space between you, the observer, and the emotion, the observed. You are not your anger. You are the one who is aware of the anger. The second step, And perhaps the most counterintuitive is to allow the feeling to be there. You welcome it. You give it permission to exist without judging it, without condemning it, and most importantly, without resisting it. Imagine a visitor has come to your door. Your entire life, when this particular visitor, let's call him fear, has knocked, you've slammed the door, barred the windows, and pretended you weren't home, all while your heart pounds in your chest. The technique of letting go is to simply open the door. You don't have to like the visitor. You don't have to serve him tea or invite him to stay forever. You simply stop fighting his presence. You let him stand in the entryway. This is an act of profound courage, of opening instead of clenching. Your mind will immediately want to label the feeling as bad, negative, or wrong. The practice is to let go of those labels too. Just for this moment, the feeling is not good or bad. It simply is. This leads directly to the third step. You do not try to change the feeling in any way. The ego's first impulse, upon feeling discomfort, is to fix it, to manage it, to get rid of it as quickly as possible. We try to reason with our anger. We try to distract ourselves from our sadness. We try to use positive affirmations to paper over our fear. The mechanism of surrender invites you to trust a deeper process. You relinquish the desire to control the inner state. It's a radical act of faith in your own being's capacity to heal. When you have a cut on your hand, you don't need to intellectually command the cells to knit themselves back together. You simply clean the wound and allow the body's innate intelligence to do its work. Feelings are the same. They are energetic wounds. The attempt to force them to change is like constantly poking at the cut, preventing it from ever healing properly. By simply allowing the feeling to be as it is, you are creating the optimal condition for it to be processed and released naturally. The fourth step is critical for your freedom and empowerment. As you allow the feeling to be present, you must disengage from the impulse to act on it. A feeling is not a command. The energy of anger may scream at you to send a scathing email. The energy of desire may urge you to make an impulsive purchase. The energy of fear may command you to hide from a life-changing opportunity. Letting go means you feel the full intensity of the energy, but you decouple it from external action. You create a sacred pause between the inner stimulus and the outer response. In this space, your true power resides. You are the conscious container for the energy, not a puppet on its strings. You can feel intense rage without becoming a raging person. You can feel deep fear without becoming a coward. You are witnessing the energy, allowing it to move through you, without being compelled by it. And the final step is to stay with the feeling and allow it to run its course. What does this mean in practice? It means you focus on the feeling as a pure physical sensation in your body. Where does the anger live? Is it a heat in your face, a tension in your fists, a pressure in your chest? What does the grief feel like? Is it a hollowness in your solar plexus, an ache in your throat? By focusing on the raw, physical sensation, you continue to bypass the mind's storytelling. You are simply observing an energy pattern. And here is the secret. According to Hawkins, a feeling is just a finite program of energy. If you do not feed it with your thoughts, it will exhaust itself. It is like a spinning top. If you keep flicking it with your thoughts, this is terrible. I can't stand this. Why is this happening to me? It will keep spinning indefinitely. But if you simply watch it without adding more mental energy, it will naturally slow down, wobble, and come to rest on its own. You stay with it, you feel it, you watch it, until you feel a subtle release, a lightness, a sense of peace where the pressure used to be. Now, it is absolutely vital to understand what letting go is not. It is not the same as suppression or repression. Suppression is an active, conscious process of pushing a feeling down. It is the decision that says, I am not going to feel this now. It is holding the beach ball underwater. It requires constant energy, constant vigilance, and it creates an enormous internal pressure that eventually leaks out as irritability, anxiety, muscle tension, and even physical illness. Repression is the unconscious version of this, where feelings are buried so deeply we don't even know they are there. Letting go is the exact opposite of both. It is not a pushing down, but an opening up. It is not an act of clenching, but of unclenching. It is allowing the energy to rise to the surface and dissipate into the open space of your awareness. Furthermore, letting go is not apathy. It is not becoming a passive doormat or condoning a negative situation. This is a common fear, that if we let go of our anger about an injustice, we will no longer be motivated to change it. The opposite is true. When you are blinded by the emotional charge of a situation, the rage, the fear, the righteous indignation, your actions are reactive, clumsy, and often ineffective. But when you let go of the feeling about the situation, you are left with a state of pristine clarity. From this calm and powerful center, you can see the truth of the matter and take inspired, effective, and precise action. Releasing your anger at your boss doesn't mean you accept mistreatment. It means you are now free to address the issue from a place of unshakable strength and wisdom, rather than from bitter reactivity. Think of it this way. A man is holding a piece of burning coal in his hand. He is screaming in agony, cursing the coal, cursing the world for his pain. The problem is not the coal itself. The pain is coming from his own hand, from his act of clenching and refusing to drop it. His friends may offer all sorts of advice to think positive thoughts about the coal, to analyze why he picked it up, to blame the person who gave it to him. But the solution is brutally simple. Just open your hand. We are all holding on to burning coals from our past old resentments, lingering griefs, chronic fears. We believe our suffering comes from the events themselves, but the ongoing pain comes from our present moment refusal to let them go. The mechanism of surrender is the simple, powerful act of opening your hand. This is a skill. It is a muscle that you can develop. You don't go to the gym once and consider yourself physically fit for life. Likewise, you do not let go of one feeling and expect to be permanently enlightened. Life, the universe, will constantly provide you with opportunities to practice. Every flicker of irritation, every pang of anxiety, every wave of sadness is an invitation from your inner self to heal, to release, to become more free. It is a moment-to-moment practice that gradually, over time, rewires your entire being from a state of resistance to a state of flow. And now that we have the key, this beautiful mechanism of release, we need a map to navigate the territory. We need a guide to understand the different emotional landscapes we will travel through. This brings us to one of Dr. Hawkins's most brilliant contributions, the map of consciousness. If the mechanism of letting go is the vehicle for our inner journey, then we now need a map, a guide to understand the terrain we will be traveling through. Without a map, a traveler can easily become lost, disoriented, unable to tell if they are making progress or simply walking in circles. Fortunately for us, Dr. David Hawkins dedicated his life to creating just such a map, a revolutionary piece of spiritual cartography known as the map of consciousness. This map wasn't born from philosophical speculation or wishful thinking. It was the result of decades of rigorous research, using a scientific process called kinesiology, or muscle testing, to measure the objective energetic frequency of different human emotions, attitudes, and states of being. The result is a profound guide that charts the entire spectrum of human experience, from the lowest states of suffering to the highest states of enlightenment. Before we explore this map, it's crucial to understand a few things about it. First, this is not a tool for judgment or for feeding the ego. It is not about labeling yourself or others as good or bad. Think of it instead as a spiritual thermometer. A thermometer that reads a low temperature isn't bad. It's simply indicating a state of coldness. In the same way, the map of consciousness simply indicates the energetic temperature, or the level of life force, associated with a particular state. The second vital point is that the map is calibrated on a logarithmic scale, from 1 to 1,000. This is a very important concept. It means that the difference between levels is not incremental, but exponential. The jump from a lower level to a higher one represents a massive leap in power, perception, and life energy. The journey upward is not just a gentle stroll. It's a quantum leap into a new reality. The map makes a fundamental distinction between two kinds of energy, a distinction that changes everything once you grasp it. The levels below the calibration of 200 are characterized by what Hawkins called force. Force is the energy of struggle. It is pushy, aggressive, and demanding. It needs to be constantly fed with more energy to sustain itself. Think of anger, which needs a grievance to fuel it, or pride, which needs external validation to survive. Force always creates an equal and opposite counterforce. An aggressive action invites an aggressive response. Pride inevitably leads to the sting of humiliation. The lower realms are a world of effort, conflict, and drain. The levels above 200, however, are characterized by what Hawkins called power. Power is the opposite of force. It is still, quiet, harmonious, and self-sustaining. It does not need to prove itself. It moves with the flow of life, not against it. Think of the quiet strength of a great tree, or the immense, effortless power of the tide. Power doesn't create opposition. It inspires, uplifts, and aligns. It is the energy of love, of truth, of peace. The entire journey of letting go, the entire purpose of this work, is to move out of the weak, stressful, and contractive states of force, and into the expansive, effortless, and life-affirming states of power. Let us begin our tour of this inner landscape at the very bottom, in the dark and constricted realms below 200. Imagine yourself as a mountain climber. These lower levels are the treacherous, misty valleys and ravines at the base of the mountain, where visibility is poor and dangers seem to lurk around every corner. At the very bottom, calibrating at only 20, is shame. This is the basement of the soul, an energy field perilously close to death. It is the feeling of being flawed at your very core, the belief that you are inherently bad. Shame leads to hiding, to invisibility, to the erasure of self. Just above it, at 30, is guilt. While shame says I am bad, guilt says I did something bad. It keeps us chained to the past, endlessly replaying our mistakes and seeking self-punishment. Rising slightly to 50, we find apathy, the gray desert of hopelessness and victimhood. Here, there is no energy to even try, a learned helplessness where life just happens to you. At 75, we encounter grief. Grief is a swamp of sorrow, loss, and regret. It's a heavy, draining field, but it has more energy than apathy. At least in grief, we are feeling something. As we climb further, we reach the pervasive fog of fear, which calibrates at 100. The world viewed from fear is a dangerous place, filled with threats and traps. Fear fuels anxiety, paranoia, and avoidance, forcing our lives to become smaller and smaller to feel safe. At 125, we find desire. This isn't the gentle preference for a goal, but the insatiable craving of addiction. From the level of desire, the mantra is I need, and happiness is always just one more acquisition away, forever out of reach. Moving up in energy, we find the volatile volcano of anger at 150. Anger has a lot more energy than the levels below it. It can spur action, but it's a destructive, resentful energy that comes from thwarted desire. Finally, just below the Great Divide, we find the fragile glass fortress of pride at 175. Pride feels good to the ego. It is the feeling of being better than, more special than. But because it depends on external conditions, it is incredibly brittle. It is defensive, arrogant, and always vulnerable to being shattered, sending one tumbling back down into shame. These lower levels, the realms of force, are where humanity has been stuck for millennia. They are characterized by contraction, a narrow, distorted perception of reality where we see ourselves as small, separate victims in a hostile world. But then, something miraculous happens. At the calibration of 200, we cross the threshold. We reach the great dividing line, the watershed moment that separates force from power. This is the level of courage. Courage, at 200, is the great escape. It is the pivotal point. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the willingness to feel the fear and act anyway. It is the first moment we stop blaming the world and take responsibility for our own inner state. It's the declaration that I have the capacity to handle this. Here, for the first time, we begin to give energy back to the world instead of just consuming it. This is the base camp for our ascent up the mountain. From here, the air begins to clear, the sun begins to break through the clouds, and the view starts to open up. The journey from the lower levels up to courage is the hardest part, and it is made possible only by the consistent application of letting go. As we climb above courage, we enter the realms of power. At 250, we find the peaceful valley of neutrality. This is the energy of it is what it is. It's a state of flexibility, non-judgment, and trust. You are no longer attached to outcomes, and the drama of the world loses its grip on you. At 310, we ascend to willingness, a bright workshop of optimism and participation. People here are happy to be alive. They do their jobs well, they are excellent team players, and they say yes to life's opportunities. They are builders and contributors. Moving up to 350 brings us to a major shift in perception. Acceptance. Here, you understand that you are the source and creator of your own experience. You stop seeing life as something to react to and start seeing it as something to consciously create. This is the beginning of true self-mastery. At 400, we reach the great library of reason. This is the level of science, of medicine, of abstraction, the level of Einstein and Freud. It is the ability to comprehend complex ideas and think objectively. It's an immensely powerful tool for humanity, but it can also be a trap. The mind can fall in love with its own concepts and refuse to see the larger context beyond the data. When we let go of the need to have a concept for everything, we can ascend further to the radiant garden of love at 500. This is not the fleeting, possessive emotion of romance. This is love as a state of being, unconditional, unchanging, and permanent. It is the energy of forgiveness, of nurturing, of seeing the inherent beauty and perfection in all of existence. From here, the air becomes rarefied. At 540, we experience joy, not as a response to a happy event, but as a constant fountain flowing from within, regardless of outer circumstances. And at 600, we reach peace, a state of profound silence and bliss, a transcendence of the ordinary world. The individual self begins to feel less important as a sense of oneness with all that is emerges. Beyond this, from 700 to 1000, lies the state of enlightenment, the reality of the great spiritual masters of history, where the individual consciousness merges completely with the divine. This map, then, is our guide. As we proceed, we will use it to understand the specific energies we are letting go of. Remember the mountain climber. Our goal is to release the heavy, unnecessary burdens of fear, anger, and guilt that keep us stuck in the dark, misty valleys. By doing so, we lighten our load, allowing us to ascend to the higher slopes, where the air is clear, the sun is warm, and the view of reality is breathtakingly beautiful and whole. Now that we have this map, our expedition can truly begin. And like any brave explorer, we must be willing to start at the very bottom, to venture into the darkest and deepest of the ravines to shine a light. We must be willing to face the level of consciousness that is closest to non-existence, the crippling, paralyzing energy of shame. Our journey begins. We have our map, and we have our vehicle of surrender. Now, with courage as our lamp, we must be willing to travel to the very bottom of the inner landscape, to the darkest and most constricted valley on the map of consciousness. Here, calibrating at a mere 20, is the energy field of shame. I want you to take a gentle breath as we approach this topic, because we are entering sacred, though painful, ground. Confronting shame is not an act of self-punishment. It is an act of profound self-love and one of the most courageous things a human being can do. This energy is the closest to spiritual death, a force of elimination and destruction that, when held onto, slowly erodes our life force and our will to live. It is the heavy, invisible cloak that underlies so much of human suffering, from shyness and social anxiety to deep depression and self-hatred. It is vital, at the outset, to distinguish shame from its close cousin guilt. We will explore guilt later. But the difference is this. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame, on the other hand, whispers something far more insidious and devastating. Shame says, I am bad. It is not an indictment of our actions, but a condemnation of our very being. It is the deep, cellular conviction that we are fundamentally flawed, defective, unworthy, and that if people were to truly see us, they would be disgusted and turn away. This is the core fear behind shame. The fear of exposure. The fear of being cast out. It is the primal terror of being banished from the human tribe. left to perish alone. What does this energy feel like in the body? Shame has a distinct physical signature. It is the sudden hot flush that rises in your face and neck. It is the immediate instinct to avert your eyes, to look down at the floor, to make yourself small. It is the slumping of the shoulders and the caving in of the chest, a physical attempt to shrink, to become invisible, to disappear entirely. Shame silences your voice, convincing you that what you have to say is worthless. It paralyzes your creativity, telling you that anything you produce will be an object of ridicule. It makes you want to crawl out of your own skin. This is the energy of humiliation, and when we are in its grip, the world feels like a courtroom where we are permanently on trial, and the verdict is always, always guilty. Where does such a devastating energy program come from? It is not something we are born with. It is installed, usually very early in life. The roots of shame often lie in childhood experiences, where our natural exuberance and vulnerability were met with ridicule, contempt, or severe criticism. It could be a parent who constantly belittled you, a teacher who humiliated you in front of the class, or playground bullies who targeted you for being different. It can stem from experiences of physical or emotional abuse, which leave the victim feeling dirty and intrinsically worthless. It can also be born from major life failure as a bankruptcy, a divorce, getting fired from a job that we internalize not as an event that happened, but as a final verdict on who we are. It's important to look at these sources not to assign blame or to get lost in a story of victimhood, but to simply understand how this impersonal energy pattern got lodged within our system. Seeing it as a program you picked up, rather than a fundamental truth about you, is the first step toward uninstalling it. This brings us to the most important question. How do we apply the mechanism of letting go to this incredibly painful feeling? Let us use the example of a gifted painter. She has a studio full of brilliant canvases, but they are all turned to the wall. The very thought of holding an exhibition, of letting others see her work, fills her with a cold dread. The voice of shame whispers, "You're a fraud. They'll see you have no real talent. They'll laugh at you." Her first step is not to argue with the voice. It's not to chant affirmations like "I am a brilliant artist." It is simply to recognize the feeling. She sits down on her studio stool, closes her eyes, and says to herself, "Okay, this feeling that is here right now, this is shame." She doesn't say, "I am ashamed." She says, "Shame is present." She creates that tiny space between herself and the feeling. Next comes the act of radical courage. She allows it to be there. This is the hardest part. Her entire body wants to run, to distract herself, to clean the studio, to call a friend, to do anything other than feel this. But instead, she stays. She breathes into the feeling. She allows the hot flush to rise in her face. She allows the sickening knot in her stomach to clench. She allows the feeling of wanting to be invisible to wash over her, without fighting it. She is walking into the fire, willingly. As she does this, she practices the third step. She doesn't try to change it. Her mind screams, "This is awful, make it stop. You shouldn't feel this way, you're a grown woman." She notices these thoughts, these judgments against the feeling itself, and she lets them go too. She just keeps returning her attention to the raw, physical sensation of shame. The heat, the pressure, the hollowness. She is not analyzing it. She is just feeling it. And fourth, she does not act on it. Shame is giving her a direct command. Turn the paintings back to the wall. Tear them up. Never show anyone. She feels this impulse with incredible intensity. The urge to hide her work, to protect herself from imagined ridicule, is overwhelming. But she just sits there. She lets the impulse be there, as an energy, without obeying it. She is decoupling the inner feeling from the outer action. Finally, she stays with it. She holds a sacred vigil for this deeply wounded part of herself. She sits with the raw energy of shame, witnessing it without judgment, as a mother might sit with a feverish child. She just holds it all in her awareness. At first, it might feel unbearable. But as she persists, something miraculous begins to happen. After a few minutes, the intensity begins to fade. The heat in her face subsides. The knot in her stomach loosens its grip just a little. She has not fed the shame with thoughts or stories, and so, like the spinning top, it begins to run out of momentum. A wave of it has passed through her and been released. She feels a tiny bit lighter. A small space of peace has opened up where the solid wall of shame used to be. This is not a one-time cure. The next day, the shame may return. But now she has the tool. She knows what to do. Each time she practices this, she releases another layer of that dense, compacted energy. Each time, she is reclaiming a little more of her own life force. Maybe after a few weeks of this practice, she takes one small painting and shows it to one trusted friend. The shame is still there, but it no longer has absolute power. It is no longer the dictator of her life. It is just a scared voice in the background, and she is learning not to take her orders from it. The impact of letting go of shame is one of the most profound transformations a person can experience. As you release this heavy burden, you begin to reclaim your fundamental right to exist, to take up space in the world. You find your voice. You start to look people in the eye. You stand a little taller. You develop a compassion for your own imperfections, and this miraculously allows you to be more compassionate and forgiving with others. The enormous amount of energy that was being used to suppress this primal fear is now liberated. It becomes available for creativity, for joy, for connection, for simply being present in your own life. You start to realize, not as an idea but as a lived reality, that your worth is inherent. It was never in question. You were just holding a burning coal of shame in your hand, believing it was a part of you. Now, you are learning to open your hand. And as we gently open our hand and let go of the deep-seated conviction that I am bad, our attention is often drawn to a related, yet distinct, energy. We are confronted by all the times we believe we did something bad. We have risen slightly on our map, from the dark valley of shame into the solemn courtroom of guilt, a place where we are simultaneously the judge, the jury, and the eternally accused. Having bravely faced the abyss of shame, the feeling that I am bad, we now ascend slightly on our map. We move from the raw condemnation of our being to the focused condemnation of our actions. Welcome to the solemn, echoing courtroom of guilt, which calibrates on the map of consciousness at a level of 30. While this is a marginal increase in energy from shame, it is still a profoundly painful and limiting state of being. Guilt is the heavy anchor that tethers our entire existence to a single moment in the past. It is the ghost of yesterday's mistake, a spectral judge that follows us into every sunrise, whispering, "Remember what you did. Remember how you failed. You can never escape it." In the realm of guilt, we are both the prisoner and the guard, endlessly serving a life sentence for a crime that only we have the power to pardon. The energy of guilt is distinct from shame. It is less about our intrinsic worth and more about a specific action or inaction. I shouldn't have said that. I should have been there for them. If only I hadn't made that decision. These are the litanies of guilt. This constant self-recrimination feels, to the ego, like a moral act. It feels like we are taking responsibility by punishing ourselves, but this is a grand illusion. Chronic guilt is not a noble virtue. It is a debilitating form of self-sabotage. It is the act of endlessly whipping ourselves for a past transgression, believing that this suffering will somehow atone for it. In truth, all this self-flagellation accomplishes is the draining of our life force in the present moment. It prevents healing, it blocks joy, and it serves absolutely no one, least of all the people we may have harmed. Living under the weight of guilt is like trying to drive a car, while looking only in the rearview mirror. Your eyes are fixed on the crash behind you, so you cannot possibly navigate the road ahead. You become tentative, hesitant, and fearful. Every new intersection, every new opportunity, is viewed through the distorted lens of your past failure. Guilt creates a prison in time, forcing you to relive your worst moments on an endless loop. The beautiful, vibrant, ever-changing landscape of the present moment unfolds all around you, but you cannot see it. You are too busy watching the grainy, black and white film of your regrets. This is how guilt steals your life. It convinces you that because you made a mistake in the past, you do not deserve happiness in the present or in the future. It is the energy that stubbornly declares, "I can never forgive myself." So, how do we unlock these chains? How do we walk out of this prison of our own making? we apply the same gentle, powerful mechanism of surrender. Let's imagine a man who, years ago, was involved in a minor car accident. No one was seriously injured, but the shock of the event and the belief that he was at fault has haunted him ever since. He has become a nervous driver, his life constricted by the fear of repeating his mistake. The universe, in its wisdom, is not punishing him. The recurring pangs of guilt are a compassionate message, a signpost pointing to an unhealed part of himself, an invitation to finally let go. His journey begins, not by replaying the accident again, but by simply recognizing the energy when it arises. As he's driving to work, a car brakes suddenly in front of him, and that old familiar feeling floods his system. Instead of getting lost in the memory, he takes a breath and practices the first step. He says internally, this heavy churning feeling, this is guilt. He has named the energy, creating a space between his awareness and the emotional program. Next, he must allow it to be there. His instinct is to immediately suppress it, to push it down with thoughts like, "Don't think about that, it's over, just focus on the road." But today, he tries something new. He allows the uncomfortable feeling to exist. He feels the cringe of self-blame, the tightness in his chest, the sick feeling in his stomach. He gives the guilt permission to be there, just for a moment, without resistance. He is no longer fighting his own inner experience. As he does this, his mind will want to jump in and justify the feeling. This is the third step. He doesn't try to change it. His thoughts will scream, "But you were careless. You should feel guilty. It's your fault." The practice is to let these thoughts drift by like clouds and to keep returning his attention to the raw sensation of guilt in his body. What does regret physically feel like? It's not a story. It's an energy. It's a weight. It's a vibration. By focusing on this, he starves the storyline of the attention it needs to survive. Fourth, he does not act on the guilt. The feeling's command might be to pull over, to stop driving, to give up his license, or to apologize profusely to the empty passenger seat. He feels these urges, these impulses to punish himself and constrict his life, but he does not obey them. He keeps his hands on the wheel, keeps his eyes on the road, and simply allows the energy to move through him while he continues with his present moment task. He is breaking the connection between the inner feeling and the outer compulsive behavior. Finally, he stays with it. He continues to breathe and feel the heavy, leaden weight of the guilt in his solar plexus. He is not fighting it, not analyzing it, not judging it. He is simply holding it in a compassionate awareness. As he does this, without feeding it the endless movie of the accident, the energy begins to exhaust itself. The intensity lessens. The weight begins to lighten. The churning in his stomach subsides. He has successfully surrendered a wave of guilt. The memory of the accident may still exist as a file in his brain, but he has begun to delete its emotional charge, its power to cause him pain. It is absolutely crucial to understand that letting go of guilt is not a denial of responsibility. This is a profound misunderstanding that keeps many people trapped. Guilt, as an energy, is paralyzing. It prevents clear thought and right action. True responsibility comes from a place of higher consciousness, from a place of clarity, acceptance, and love. When our driver releases the feeling of guilt, he is not saying the accident was okay. He is freeing himself from the paralysis of self-punishment, so he can actually integrate the lesson. From a clear state, he can acknowledge his mistake, learn from it, and commit to being a more mindful and present driver in the future. He can transform the experience from a source of shame into a source of wisdom. Making amends, if they are needed, is always more powerful and sincere when it comes from a place of peace, not from the cowering energy of guilt. Letting go of guilt is the ultimate act of self-forgiveness. It is the recognition that holding on to the past does not change it. The only thing it changes is your present, tainting it with sorrow and regret. To release guilt is to cut the anchor that has kept your ship moored in the stormy waters of yesterday. It is to finally raise the sails and allow the winds of the present moment to carry you forward into new, uncharted seas. It is to look at the part of you that made a mistake and say, not with arrogance, but with deep compassion, "I forgive you. You have been punished enough. You are free." Oh, As we release these heavy chains of the past, as we walk out of the courtroom of self-judgment, we may find ourselves confronting a different kind of prison. It is not a prison of active pain, but one of passive numbness. It's a place where the vibrant colors of life seem to have faded to gray, where all the fight has gone out of us, and nothing seems to matter anymore. We have moved from the courtroom of guilt to the desolate, silent wasteland of apathy. Having navigated the echoing courtroom of guilt, and having begun the process of forgiving our past, we might expect to feel lighter, freer. But sometimes, the release of one heavy burden only serves to reveal another. We may find that we have moved from the active pain of self-blame into a strange and desolate landscape, a place devoid of color, flavor, or meaning. This is the great gray wasteland of apathy, which calibrates at a level of 50 on the map of consciousness. This is the energy of despair, of chronic hopelessness, and of deep-seated victimhood. It is the quiet, chilling whisper of the thought, "What's the use?" In this realm, life is not a grand adventure, nor is it a painful trial. It is simply a pointless, monotonous burden to be endured. The state of apathy is more than just sadness or disappointment. It is the absence of feeling. It is a profound numbness that settles over the spirit like a thick, leaden blanket, smothering motivation, passion, and purpose. From this level of consciousness, the world appears intractable and hostile. Circumstances seem hopelessly fixed, and any effort to change them feels utterly futile. The prevailing belief is, I can't. I can't get a better job. I can't find a loving partner. I can't improve my health. I can't be happy. This belief in one's own powerlessness becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Life consistently presents us with evidence to confirm our deepest beliefs, and so, to the person in apathy, the world graciously proves over and over again that there is, indeed, no point in trying. This is the energy of burnout, of profound disillusionment, and it is the foundation of the victim consciousness that sees life as something that happens to us, rather than for us or through us. To understand how to escape this state, we must first understand its function. Apathy, as Dr. Hawkins brilliantly pointed out, is often not the bottom of the emotional barrel. It is in fact a powerful defense mechanism. It is a fortress of numbness that the psyche constructs to protect itself from more acute and intolerable pain. Beneath the frozen surface of apathy often lies a raging sea of unprocessed grief, a terrifying chasm of fear, or a volcano of suppressed anger. At some point, feeling these things became so overwhelming that the system chose to shut down altogether. It's a form of learned death, a strategic retreat from a life that felt too painful to bear. The numbness of "I don't care" feels safer than the sharp agony of "this hurts too much." While this fortress may seem to protect us, it is also a prison. By locking out the pain, it simultaneously locks out love, joy, connection, and grace. This presents a unique challenge. How do you let go of a feeling that is defined by the absence of feeling? How do you surrender to avoid? The process is subtle, yet profoundly powerful, and it begins not with a grand gesture, but with the tiniest spark of intention. It begins with the simple willingness to want to feel again. You don't have to know how. You don't have to feel ready. You simply have to hold the quiet intention, perhaps phrased as a prayer. I am willing to be healed of this. I am willing to feel again. Oh, imagine a person who has been sitting in a dark room for months, curtains drawn, not even bothering to turn on a light. They have become so accustomed to the darkness that they have forgotten the sun. The journey out does not begin with flinging open the curtains to the blinding light. That would be too jarring. The journey begins with the first step of the letting go mechanism: recognition. The person simply becomes aware of their state without judgment. I am sitting in a dark room. I am experiencing the energy of apathy. Then they allow it. They allow the feeling of numbness. They allow the hollowness, the heaviness, the profound lack of motivation to simply be there. What's the point? Feel like is a pure sensation in the body? Is it a dead weight in the limbs, a hollowness in the chest, a cold static feeling throughout the system? Instead of fighting the numbness or trying to think their way out of it, they surrender to the experience of it. They let go of their resistance to the apathy. And in doing so, they are implicitly giving permission for whatever lies beneath it to surface. This is the pivotal moment. It is a quiet surrender to the pain that the apathy has been protecting them from. It is the inner declaration, I am willing to feel whatever I have been avoiding. And what happens when that heavy gray blanket of apathy begins to lift? It is rarely a direct flight to joy. More often than not, releasing the numbness simply reveals the very feelings we were so desperate to escape. A sudden, unexpected surge of anger might erupt, directed at the world, at God, or at oneself for all the wasted time. A profound wave of grief might wash over us. The unshed tears for all the losses we never allowed ourselves to mourn. A sharp sting of fear about the future might pierce through the numbness. It is crucial to see this not as a setback, but as a triumphant sign of progress. To feel anger, or fear, or grief means that your life force is returning. You have enough energy again to actually feel. From the perspective of the map of consciousness, moving from apathy at 50 to fear at 100, or even anger at 150, is a major step up the ladder. It is a return to life, and now, armed with our technique of surrender, we can meet each of these newly surfaced emotions, one by one, and let them go as well. The first steps out of the void are small and gentle. The person in the dark room, having sat with their apathy, might suddenly feel a tiny, unbidden impulse. Not to throw open the curtains, but maybe just to lift a single slat on the blinds. They peek out. The light stings their eyes, but they see that the world is still there. A tree is swaying in the wind. A car drives by. This tiny influx of new energy, this sliver of light, might be just enough to give them the motivation to stand up or to drink a glass of water. Letting go of apathy is an incremental process of re-engagement. You surrender a layer of the numbness, which frees up a quantum of energy, which you then use to take one small action, which in turn brings more life force into your system. Escaping the prison of apathy is not a forceful battle. You cannot command yourself to feel motivated. You cannot berate yourself into caring. It is a process of gentle allowing, of quiet surrender. It is the courageous decision to stop protecting yourself from your own pain, and instead, to turn and face it with compassion. It is the brave, foundational step of reclaiming your vitality and your divine right to a life of rich, vibrant feeling. And as the cold, gray fog of apathy begins to thin and dissipate, we often find ourselves standing in a landscape saturated with a deep and quiet sorrow. The numbness gives way to a profound ache, a feeling of loss that seems to have no end. We have emerged from the empty void and found ourselves on the shores of a great silent river, the river of our own unshed tears. We have arrived at the realm of grief. Having emerged from the desolate gray fog of apathy, we find that our feeling has returned. But the first sensation is often not one of joy or relief, but of a deep and profound ache. The numbness has given way to sorrow. We have walked out of the empty void and found ourselves standing on the banks of a great and silent river, a river formed from all of our unshed tears. We have arrived in the realm of grief, which calibrates on the map of consciousness at a level of 75. While this is still a state of suffering, it is crucial to recognize that it holds significantly more life force than apathy. To grieve is to be alive. Grief is not a mistake, a weakness, or a problem to be solved. It is one of the most natural, necessary, and sacred healing processes of the human heart. It is the emotional body's response to loss, and its presence is a testament to our capacity to love. Grief arises in response to any significant ending. The most obvious, of course, is the death of a loved one. But we also grieve the end of a marriage, the loss of a cherished friendship, the fading of our youth, the decline of our health, the letting go of a long-held dream, or the departure from a home filled with memories. Anytime a part of our life that we have loved and identified with comes to an end, grief is the natural consequence. It manifests as waves of sadness, a persistent feeling of heaviness in the heart, an ache in the throat, and a profound sense of emptiness, a hollowness in the space where someone or something used to be. It can feel as though the color has been drained from the world, leaving everything muted and distant. In a healthy context, grief is a process that moves, flows, and ultimately cleanses the soul. However, our modern culture often treats grief with fear and impatience. We are told to be strong, to keep a stiff upper lip, to move on, and to keep busy. We are given a brief, socially acceptable window to mourn, and after that, we are expected to be over it and back to our productive selves. This is a profound spiritual violence. It forces us to deny a natural healing process and to suppress the very energy that needs to be released. And suppressed grief does not vanish. It goes underground, where it festers. As Dr. Hawkins observed, unresolved grief is the primary cause of chronic, low-grade depression. It becomes a permanent veil of sorrow that hangs over our lives, subtly draining our energy, poisoning our relationships, and blocking our ability to experience true joy. We become haunted by the ghosts of our past losses, never truly free to embrace the present. The pathway to healing, then, is not to fight the grief, but to surrender to it. It is to give ourselves the permission we were so often denied, the permission to mourn fully, completely, and for as long as it takes. This is how we apply the mechanism of letting go to the energy of grief. It begins with honoring the process. When a wave of sadness arises, instead of immediately choking it back or seeking a distraction, we pause. We recognize it. This is grief. This is the sadness for my loss. We honor it as the presence of love in another form. Then, we allow the wave to come. Grief is not a steady state. It moves in crests and troughs. When you feel a wave building, the practice is to find a safe space and let it wash over you. If tears come, you let them flow without judgment. Tears are not a sign of weakness. They are the physical manifestation of emotional release. They are the river of grief literally flowing, carrying away the pain and cleansing the heart. Trying to stop your tears is like trying to dam a river. The pressure only builds, seeking another, often more destructive, outlet. So you cry. You allow yourself to feel the full depth of the ache, the emptiness, the longing. You don't need to wallow in the story, but you must be willing to feel the raw sensation of the emotion itself. Consider a garden after a long, harsh winter. The trees are bare, the ground is hard and frozen, and everything appears lifeless. This is the landscape of grief. A foolish gardener might curse the winter, trying to deny its reality or force flowers to bloom in the frozen soil. This is what we do when we suppress our grief. A wise gardener, however, understands that winter is a necessary and vital part of the cycle. It is a time of rest, of turning inward, of allowing the land to lie fallow. They trust the process. They know that beneath the seemingly dead surface, life is quietly gathering its strength, preparing for renewal. To let go of grief is to become the wise gardener of your own soul. It is to allow the winter of your sorrow to have its season, trusting that spring will eventually come. As you courageously allow yourself to move through the winter of grief, a profound alchemy begins to occur. On the other side of the intense pain of loss, you discover its hidden counterpart: gratitude. You can only grieve what you have deeply loved. The immense pain you feel is a direct measure of the immense love you had. As you surrender to the sorrow, you are not just mourning the absence. You are honoring the presence it once had in your life. The memories that once brought tears of pain now begin to bring tears of gratitude. The sharp ache of loss softens into a sweet, poignant remembrance. You become profoundly thankful for the time you had, for the love you shared, for the lessons you learned. In this way, grief is transformed from a bitter poison into a sacred tribute. There is another vital reason to allow grief to complete its cycle. Nature abhors a vacuum, both in the outer world and in our inner world. When we cling to old, unresolved grief, we fill our energetic space with the past. There is simply no room for anything new to enter. It is like refusing to clear out a room filled with the dusty belongings of someone who has long since departed. By keeping the room full, we prevent it from ever being used for a new purpose. Allowing the river of grief to flow through us is a process of inner cleansing. We are lovingly clearing out that room, making space within our hearts. It is an act of supreme faith that once the space is cleared, the universe, in its own time and its own way, will fill it with new life, new love, and new joy. Grief is not an enemy to be conquered or a problem to be fixed. It is love's shadow, a sacred visitor that arrives whenever we have loved deeply. By welcoming it, honoring it, and allowing it to move through us in its own time, we allow ourselves to heal at the deepest level. We find a gratitude that is unbreakable, and we prepare the fertile soil of our soul for a new spring, a new season of growth. And as we stand in this newly cleansed inner space, having made peace with the losses of our past, our attention often turns to the vast, unknown territory that lies ahead. The emptiness, once filled with the ache of sorrow, can now become a blank screen upon which we project our deepest anxieties. We have faced the pain of what was, and now we must confront the phantom terror of what might be. We must turn our gaze from the ghosts of yesterday to the shadows lurking in the corner of tomorrow's room. We have arrived at the doorstep of the great inhibitor, the emotion that holds more people captive than any other. We must now learn to let go of fear. As the cleansing waters of grief recede, leaving the soil of our soul fertile and new, our attention naturally shifts. We have made our peace with the past, but now we must turn to face the future. And it is here, in the vast, unknown territory of what is to come, that we encounter the great jailer of human potential. It is a shadow that lurks in the corner of every mind, a phantom that whispers limitations into the ear of every dreamer. We have arrived at the level of fear, which calibrates at 100 on the map of consciousness. Fear is one of the most dominant energy fields on the planet, the invisible force behind our hesitations, our smallness, and our failure to live our most expansive lives. It is a distorting lens that makes the world appear hostile, threatening, and full of peril, forcing us to play it safe and stay within the narrow confines of what is known. Fear wears 1,000 masks, but its essence is always the same. It is not merely the primal fear of physical danger, like a predator in the wild. In our modern world, its forms are far more insidious and psychological. It is the fear of failure, the voice that asks, "What if I pour my heart into this and fall flat on my face?" It is the fear of rejection and criticism, the paralyzing question, "What will they think of me? What if they laugh?" It is the subtle fear of success, the quiet terror that if we actually achieve our dreams, we won't be able to handle the pressure or will be exposed as a fraud. It is the fear of the unknown, the powerful inertia that keeps us chained to a familiar misery rather than allowing us to step into an uncertain but potentially glorious future. And underlying all of these is often the most fundamental fear of all, the fear that we are simply not good enough, that we lack the essential worthiness to achieve, to be loved, or to be happy. To disarm fear, we must first understand its anatomy. Fear is a master illusionist, and its greatest trick is to convince us that it is about the present moment. But fear almost never is. Right here, right now, in this present moment, you are safe. You are breathing. You are listening. The present moment is almost always manageable. Fear, you see, lives in the imagination. It is the mental act of taking a negative thought, projecting it onto the blank screen of the future, and then having your body react in the present as if that terrifying movie were actually real. You think about giving a presentation next week. You imagine yourself stumbling over your words. You see the audience looking bored or critical, and instantly, your body responds. Your heart begins to race, your palms sweat, your breath becomes shallow, and a surge of adrenaline and cortisol floods your system. Your body cannot tell the difference between a real, present moment threat and a powerfully imagined future one. It dutifully triggers the ancient fight-or-flight response, preparing you to battle a tiger that exists only in your mind. Knowing this is the key that unlocks the prison door. If fear is a physiological response to a future-oriented thought, then the way to let it go is not to argue with the thought, but to surrender to the physiological response. This is where most people go wrong. They try to reason with their fear. They try to use logic or positive affirmations to convince themselves that everything will be fine. But this is like politely asking the tiger to leave while it's chewing on your leg. It's a form of resistance, and what we resist persists. Let us imagine an aspiring entrepreneur. She has a brilliant idea for a new business, a passion that could change her life. But every time she considers quitting her stable but soul-crushing job, she is slammed by a wave of crippling fear. The what-ifs attack her like a pack of wolves. What if you lose all your savings? What if no one buys your product? What if you end up humiliated and broke? The path of surrender offers a radically different approach. When that wave of fear hits, instead of distracting herself or fighting it, she stops. She closes her eyes. She practices the first step. She recognizes the feeling. Okay, this is the energy of fear. And then she allows it. She allows her heart to race. She allows the tightness to grip her chest. She allows the cold sweat to form on her brow. She stops telling herself she shouldn't be feeling this way. For this moment, she gives the fear full permission to be there. And here's the most crucial step. She deliberately withdraws her attention from the mental storyline. She refuses to watch the horror movie of her imagined failure. Instead, she focuses her entire awareness on the raw, physical sensations of the fear itself. What does this energy actually feel like in the body, stripped of its story? It is simply an intense vibration. It is a powerful surge of electricity. It's a tightness here, a fluttering there, a heat somewhere else. She breathes into the very center of the sensation. The natural impulse is to shrink away from it, to contract. The practice of surrender is to move towards it with her awareness, to meet it, to saturate it with her presence. As she does this, she practices the fourth step. She does not act on the fear's command. The fear is screaming at her, "Retreat, it's not safe. Open up your resume, forget this crazy idea, and stay in your safe job." She feels this powerful urge to pull back, to play it safe. But she does not obey. She simply sits with the energy, allowing it to crest like a wave, holding her ground in the storm of her own nervous system. And as she stays with it, without feeding it any more fearful thoughts, the energy begins to run its course. The wave crests, and then, inevitably, it begins to subside. The intensity lessens, her heart rate slows, her breathing deepens. She has successfully surrendered a quantum of fear. This practice reveals a profound secret. The raw, physiological energy of fear is almost identical to the energy of excitement. A racing heart, quickened breath, heightened senses. A surge of adrenaline. All of these are present when we are terrified, and they are also present when we are thrilled and excited. The only difference is the label, the story that the mind attaches to the sensation. When we call it fear, we contract and suffer. When we call it excitement, we expand and feel alive. By surrendering to the raw energy of fear without its story, we neutralize it. We bring it back to a 0 point. From this place of neutrality, we can then consciously choose to relabel it. Our entrepreneur, having felt the fear subside, can now look at the remaining energy and say, "This isn't terror. This is the thrill of a new adventure. This is the energy I need to make my dream a reality." Fear is not your enemy. It is a biological alarm system that has become oversensitive in a world of psychological, rather than physical, threats. But it is also a compass. Very often, the thing you are most afraid of doing is the very thing that will set you free. The fear is a signpost, pointing directly to the edge of your comfort zone. It is a sacred guardian, standing at the gateway to your own growth. By learning to face the sensation of fear and let it go, you are not destroying the guardian. You are showing it that you are ready to pass. You are claiming your power to walk through that gate and into a larger, more courageous life. And as we learn to face our fears, releasing their paralyzing grip, we free up an enormous amount of life force. This liberated energy, no longer consumed by anxiety and avoidance, now seeks an outlet. It wants to move, to create, to achieve, to attain. But this very momentum can lead us into another, more subtle and seductive trap. We have escaped the cold prison of what we don't want, only to find ourselves in the hot, hungry, and endless pursuit of what we think we want. We have moved from the paralysis of fear to the unquenchable thirst of desire. Having navigated the shadowy corridors of fear, we find ourselves standing in the light, our life force no longer consumed by anxiety and what-ifs. This newly liberated energy is powerful. It is dynamic. It wants to move, to create, to experience, to attain. But this very momentum, this forward-striving impulse, can lead us directly into another of the ego's most clever and seductive traps. We have escaped the cold prison of what we dread. only to find ourselves on the hot, endless treadmill of what we crave. We have arrived at the level of desire, which calibrates at 125 on the map of consciousness. This is the realm of unquenchable thirst, the engine of addiction and ceaseless wanting that powers so much of our modern world. It is absolutely essential to understand what Dr. Hawkins means by desire. This is not the calm, inspired setting of a goal that comes from a place of wholeness. That is the work of higher levels of consciousness. Desire, at this level of force, is a state of craving that stems from a deep inner feeling of lack. It is the fundamental belief that your happiness, your completeness, your peace, is not here, now, inside you, but is located out there, in some future acquisition. It is the mantra of the ego. I will be happy when I get the promotion, I buy the house, I find the perfect partner, I lose 20 pounds, I have $1 million in the bank. Happiness is perpetually held hostage, always just one more achievement away. This is the operating system of our consumer culture. The entire industry of advertising is designed for the singular purpose of creating and amplifying the energy of desire within you. It is engineered to make you feel a sense of lack, an incompleteness that can only be remedied by their product. The result is what sociologists call the hedonic treadmill. We desire something, we work tirelessly to get it, and upon achieving it, we experience a brief flicker of pleasure. But almost immediately, our baseline of satisfaction resets, and the mind, the hungry ghost, is already fixated on the next thing. The man who dreamed of owning a particular car feels a thrill driving it off the lot. But within months, he is already noticing the newer model, and the seed of a new desire is planted. The woman who longed for a specific job title feels a rush of validation when she gets it, but soon finds herself consumed with anxiety about attaining the next rung on the ladder. Desire, at this level, is a game that is rigged against you. You can never, ever win, because the finish line is a mirage that constantly recedes as you approach it. The spiritual path does not ask you to abandon your ambitions or to become a passive drifter. The path asks you to purify the energy behind your ambitions. There is a world of difference between setting a goal from a place of power and chasing a desire from a place of force. A goal born of power, from a level like acceptance or love, sounds like this. I am a whole and complete being right now, and it would be a joyful and expansive experience to create this business, or to build this relationship, or to master this skill. The joy is found in the process, in the act of creation itself. Desire born of force sounds like this. I am an empty and incomplete person, and I need this thing, this status, this person to finally fill this void inside me and make me feel worthy and happy. Here, the joy is projected entirely onto the outcome. Letting go of desire does not mean you stop creating. It means you stop believing your creations can complete you. So, how do we apply the mechanism of surrender to this powerful, agitating energy of craving? It begins the moment a desire is triggered. You see an advertisement for a luxury vacation, or a friend posts photos of their new home, and that familiar pang of wanting, of envy, of I need that, arises. The conditioned response is either to immediately act on it or start researching flights, to call a real estate agent or to suppress it with guilt. I shouldn't be so materialistic. The path of surrender is to do neither. You simply stop. You recognize the feeling. Ah, this is the energy of desire. This is craving. Then, you allow it to be there. You allow the restlessness, the agitation, the mental obsession to exist without fighting it. And you take it a step further. You dive underneath the desire and focus on the feeling that fuels it. The feeling of lack. What does that inner emptiness, that sense of not having, feel like as a pure sensation in the body? It is a void. The practice is to stay with the raw feeling of the void itself, rather than desperately trying to fill it with the object of your desire. As you hold that feeling of emptiness in a compassionate awareness, you consciously let go of your attachment to the outcome. You make a silent declaration to the universe. I would enjoy experiencing this, but my peace and wholeness are not dependent on it. My happiness is here and now. In that moment of release, the needy, desperate energy of the craving collapses. This leads us to a profound secret about how the universe actually works. A secret often misunderstood by students of the law of attraction. Imagine a person in a beautiful garden, trying to catch a butterfly. He runs after it, swinging his net wildly. The more desperately he chases it, the more erratically the butterfly flutters, always just out of reach. This is the energy of desire, needy, chasing, and desperate. It broadcasts a powerful vibration of "I don't have it," and the universe, which responds to vibration, dutifully gives you more experiences of not having it. Now, imagine the person gives up the chase. He stops running. He turns his attention inward. He decides not to be a chaser, but to become a flower. He cultivates his own inner garden. He becomes still, peaceful, radiant, and whole, content in his own being. And what happens? The butterfly, unpursued, comes and gently lands upon his shoulder, all on its own. To let go of desire is to stop being the chaser and to start being the flower. By releasing the needy craving for something, you paradoxically become a vibrational match for it. You shift from a state of lack to a state of wholeness, and the universe begins to bring you people, opportunities, and experiences that resonate with your new, peaceful, and self-sufficient vibration. Things come to you effortlessly, by grace, rather than by struggle. This is the ultimate shift in power. It is the movement from a position of weakness to a position of strength. It is the transition from needing to choosing. You can still choose to have wonderful things in your life. You can choose to create a masterpiece, build a thriving company, or enjoy a beautiful home. But you do so from a place of fullness, not emptiness. Your inner peace is no longer held hostage by the whims of the external world. You are free. This inner shift from needing to choosing is a profound step toward liberation. But what happens when life does not conform to our preferences? What happens when our path is blocked, our inspired goals are thwarted, or our sovereign choices are disrespected by others? When the energy of our intention meets a solid wall, it can often recoil upon itself, compress, and ignite into a powerful, volatile, and sometimes destructive fire. We have arrived at the heated, eruptive realm of anger. As the insatiable craving of desire is met with the inevitable frustrations and limitations of the world, its hot energy often morphs into something even more volatile. When our path is blocked, our expectations are unmet, or our will is thwarted, a powerful, eruptive force can surge up from within us. We have arrived at the consuming fire of anger, which calibrates at a level of 150 on the map of consciousness. It's important to note that anger has significantly more energy than fear, grief, or apathy. It can blast through the paralysis of fear and the despair of grief, which is why, to the ego, it can feel deceptively empowering. It provides a surge of energy and a sense of righteousness. However, like a forest fire, while it is powerful, it is still a destructive force. It is part of the realm of force, and it indiscriminately burns the person feeling it and everyone and everything in its path. To master anger, we must first understand its anatomy. Anger is rarely a primary emotion. It is almost always a protective shield, a powerful secondary reaction that the ego uses to cover up a deeper, more vulnerable feeling. If you look beneath the surface of anger, you will almost always find a foundation of fear or grief. We get angry at our partner for being late because we are afraid they don't care about us. We get angry at a political situation because we are grieving the loss of a value we hold dear. We get angry when someone cuts us off in traffic because we are momentarily terrified by the threat to our safety. Anger feels stronger and more powerful than the vulnerability of fear or the pain of grief, so the ego latches onto it as a preferable state. It is a suit of armor we put on to avoid feeling our own tender heart. It is a declaration of, "I am not a victim." But it does so through aggression, which only perpetuates the cycle of conflict. Our society is deeply confused about how to handle this powerful emotion. This confusion creates a dangerous double-edged sword: suppression on one side and uncontrolled expression on the other. On one side, we are often taught that anger is bad. Good, spiritual, or polite people don't get angry. This leads to suppression. We feel the flash of anger, but we immediately push it down, swallow it, and pretend it isn't there. But the energy doesn't vanish. It gets stored in the body, where it becomes a slow-acting poison. Suppressed anger can manifest as chronic anxiety, cynicism, bitterness, sarcasm, and passive-aggressive behavior. It can also contribute to a host of physical ailments, such as hypertension, headaches, and digestive issues. This is the path of implosion, a slow, simmering self-destruction. On the other side of the sword is the misguided belief in cathartic expression. This is the idea that it's healthy to let it all out, to scream, to shout, to punch pillows, to vent endlessly to our friends about how we've been wronged. While this may provide a momentary feeling of release, Dr. Hawkins was clear that this approach is a grave mistake. Every time you indulge in an angry outburst, you are not releasing anger, you are practicing it. You are strengthening the neural pathways of rage, making it easier and more likely that you will get angry the next time. It gives the ego a powerful jolt of righteous justification, but it is deeply corrosive to your inner peace and profoundly destructive to your relationships. This is the path of explosion, which leaves a trail of wreckage in your life. There is a third way. It is not implosion or explosion. It is transmutation. Imagine your anger is like the steam building up inside a pressure cooker. Suppression is clamping the lid down tight, hoping it doesn't blow. Uncontrolled expression is letting the entire pot explode, destroying your kitchen and scalding everyone nearby. The technique of letting go is the third way. It is the art of calmly and consciously reaching over and slowly, carefully, opening the pressure release valve. You don't deny the pressure exists. You don't detonate it. You allow the energy to be released safely, intentionally, and under your conscious control. This is how it works in practice. A trigger occurs. A colleague takes credit for your work in a meeting. You feel that instant, hot flash of rage. The first and most critical step is to create a sacred pause. Instead of immediately lashing out or seething in resentful silence, you do nothing. You bite your tongue. You take one conscious breath. You turn your attention inward. You recognize the energy. This is anger. Then, you give this powerful, fiery energy permission to exist within you. You allow the heat to rise in your chest and face. You feel the impulse to clench your jaw and your fists. You welcome the raw, explosive power without fear and without judgment. Now you starve the fire of its fuel. The fuel for anger is the story, the mental commentary. How dare he? After all the work I did, this is completely unfair. He always does this. You must let go of this story. Withdraw your attention from the thoughts and focus it entirely on the pure physical sensation of the anger itself. What does this fire feel like in your body? It is a powerful vibration. It is an intense pressure. It is a searing heat. Observe it as a curious scientist would observe a chemical reaction. You are not the anger. You are the spacious, calm awareness in which the anger is happening. As you hold the energy in this way, you are neither suppressing it nor expressing it. You are containing it. You are allowing it to burn itself out in the safe crucible of your own consciousness. And deprived of the fuel of your thoughts, it will do exactly that. You will feel the wave of energy crest to its peak intensity, and then, as you continue to just watch it, it will begin to subside. The heat will lessen. The pressure will ease. You will feel the release as the energy dissipates, leaving you in a state of calm clarity. This is the moment of alchemy. The emotional charge of the anger is gone, but the energy behind it is not. You are now left with a large amount of pure, neutral, dynamic life force. The situation that triggered you still exists, but you are no longer blinded by rage. You are in a state of high power and clarity. From this place, you can choose to take wise, constructive action. You can calmly and firmly schedule a meeting with your colleague and your boss to clarify the contributions to the project. You can strategize. You can set a powerful boundary. You have successfully transmuted the destructive, reactive energy of force into the calm, creative, and unstoppable energy of power. You have turned the lead of rage into the gold of purposeful action. Anger is a powerful signal that a boundary has been crossed or an expectation has been violated, but it is a terrible master. By learning to surrender the emotional charge, we can hear its message without getting burned by its fire. We become inner alchemists, capable of handling one of life's most powerful energies with grace and wisdom. And as we become more adept at this, as we gain mastery over these lower emotional states, a new and far more subtle temptation can arise. The ego, observing our progress, may begin to puff out its chest. It may start to feel special, superior, and more evolved than others. We have escaped the obvious trap of destructive anger, only to risk falling into the fragile, glittering, and treacherous snare of pride. Having learned to harness the raw fire of anger, turning its destructive force into conscious action, we begin to feel a sense of mastery over our inner world. We are no longer a helpless victim of our emotions. We can face our fears, process our grief, and handle frustration with newfound grace. And it is right here, in this feeling of accomplishment, that we encounter the final, most seductive, and most treacherous gatekeeper of the lower realms. It is the highest floor of the prison, the one with the best view and the most comfortable furniture, the cell that feels so good we mistake it for a palace. We have come to the fragile, glittering throne of pride, which calibrates at 175 on the map of consciousness, the very last outpost of force before the great border crossing into power. Pride is the most misunderstood of the lower energy fields because, to the ego, it feels good. It is a state of inflation, of feeling special, important, and superior. Its primary fuel is comparison. And its core belief is, I am better than you. I am better because I am more successful, more attractive, more intelligent, or, in its most insidious spiritual form, because I am more evolved, more conscious, or have done more work on myself than others. It is absolutely essential to distinguish this egoic pride from genuine self-esteem. True self-esteem, which is a characteristic of the higher levels of consciousness, is a quiet, inner knowing of one's own intrinsic worth, independent of any external achievements or comparisons. It is humble and expansive. Pride, on the other hand, is arrogant and defensive. It is entirely dependent on external validation and on the perception that others are less than. It cannot exist without something or someone to look down upon. This dependency is what makes the throne of pride so incredibly fragile, because its sense of worth is built upon shifting external factors: wealth that can be lost, looks that will fade, status that can be challenged. The proud person lives in a state of constant, low-grade fear. They are perpetually defending their fragile position. They are hypersensitive to criticism, because even a small critique feels like a dagger aimed at the very heart of their identity. Their grand fortress, which looks so impressive from the outside, is actually made of glass. And this is why, when a person's pride is wounded, their reaction can be so disproportionately intense. Dr. Hawkins' map shows us a terrifying energetic reality. When the inflated bubble of pride at 175 is popped, the individual does not gently float down to a lower level. They plummet catastrophically, all the way down to the bottom of the map, into the abyss of shame at a level of 20. The intense defensiveness of the proud person is a desperate, panicked attempt to prevent this devastating fall, to keep their fragile glass fortress from shattering into a million pieces. Consider the story of a brilliant academic scholar. His entire sense of self is built upon being the smartest person in any room. He relishes intellectual debates, skillfully dismantling his opponent's arguments, feeling a rush of superior satisfaction with every victory. To the outside world, he appears confident, powerful, even intimidating. But his inner life is one of secret terror. He lives in mortal fear of being exposed as a fraud. He avoids attending conferences where he might encounter true intellectual giants who could challenge him. He dismisses new theories out of hand if they threaten his established worldview. His pride has built a prison around him, a prison that masquerades as an ivory tower, cutting him off from genuine learning and authentic connection. How does one let go of an energy that feels so good to the ego? The process is subtle and requires a radical honesty with oneself. It is the gentle art of voluntary deflation. The process begins when you feel that familiar sensation of being puffed up. Perhaps you've just received a major award, or someone has paid you an effusive compliment, or you find yourself silently judging someone else for their perceived inferiority. You feel that smug, self-satisfied feeling rising in your chest. The first step, as always, is to recognize it without judgment. This sensation, this feeling of being better than, this is pride. There is no need for self-recrimination. It is simply an energy pattern. Next, you allow the feeling to be there, but you consciously refuse to indulge it. You don't get lost in the mental movie of your own greatness. You don't replay the compliment over and over. You simply witness the physical sensation of self-inflation. You feel the puffing of the chest, the lifting of the chin, the subtle energy of disdain for others. And then comes the conscious act of surrender, which, for pride, is the choice of humility. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. It is a quiet inner declaration. My true worth is not located in this achievement. My value as a being is inherent and unconditional. This feeling of superiority is an illusion. As you hold this intention, as you choose the quiet truth of your intrinsic worth over the noisy glamour of egoic specialness, you will feel the energy gently deflate. It is like the slow, soft hiss of air leaving a balloon. You are not crashing down into shame. You are gently returning to the solid, peaceful ground of reality, to the simple dignity of just being, rather than the stressful job of being better than. For our scholar, the journey of letting go is not about trying to become less intelligent. It is about surrendering his attachment to his intelligence as the source of his identity. It's learning to enter a discussion with curiosity instead of a need to win. It's gaining the capacity to hear a challenging idea without his defenses going up. It's finding the courage to say those three most liberating words for a proud intellectual. I don't know. As he slowly lets the air out of his intellectual pride, he paradoxically opens himself up to a level of wisdom that was previously unavailable to him, a wisdom that is collaborative, humble, and ever-growing. This act of letting go of pride is the non-negotiable price of admission to the realms of true power. It is the final and most difficult test of the lower levels. Pride and courage cannot coexist. Pride is a state of denial. It insists, I am perfect, I have it all figured out. Courage, the next level up, is a state of profound honesty. It requires the admission, I have flaws, I have fears, but I am willing to face them and work with them. You cannot simultaneously deny your fears out of pride and face them with courage. It is an energetic impossibility. Therefore, the surrender of pride is the final, essential turn of the key in the lock. It is the conscious choice to value authenticity over appearance and to prioritize your own spiritual growth above the ego's need to be right. As we willingly step down from the fragile throne of pride, as we allow the glittering balloon of the ego to gently deflate, we find ourselves standing, for the first time, on truly solid ground. The constant, exhausting need to defend, to prove, to compare, to be better than, has vanished, and in its place is a quiet strength. For the first time, we have the honest capacity to look at our lives, our fears, and our challenges without denial or bravado. We have paid the price of admission. We have surrendered the final gatekeeper. We have arrived at the great threshold, the watershed moment that separates the weakness of force from the quiet strength of power. We are now ready to take our first step across that line into the clear and empowering light of courage. As we make the conscious choice to step down from the fragile throne of pride, a profound shift occurs in the very atmosphere of our being. We have let go of the need to be better than, the need to defend, the need to be right. In that act of surrender, a heavy, invisible burden dissolves, and we find ourselves standing on solid ground, ready and willing to be honest with ourselves for the first time. We have paid the final toll. We have turned the great key in the lock. And now, we step across the most significant line on the entire map of consciousness. We are crossing the threshold from the world of force into the world of power. We are leaving behind the dark, constricted prison of the lower states and stepping into the bright, open landscape of empowerment. We have arrived at the level of courage, which calibrates at the pivotal point of 200. This is not just another step up the ladder. This is a quantum leap, a dimensional shift in your entire experience of reality. All of the energy fields below 200, pride, anger, desire, fear, grief, apathy, guilt, and shame, are energetically contractive and draining. They operate by the principle of force. They need to take energy from the outside world to sustain themselves. Pride needs admiration, anger needs a villain, desire needs an object to crave. They are states of inner poverty and neediness. Courage is the first level of consciousness that is expansive and life-giving. It is the first level of true power. From this point forward, you cease to be an energetic drain on the world, and you begin to contribute energy to it. Life stops happening to you, and it begins to flow through you. This is the watershed moment where you stop being a victim of your life and start becoming its conscious co-creator. To walk this new path, we must first redefine courage, clearing away the cultural clutter and understanding it in its pure, energetic form. Courage is not what we've been taught. It is not the absence of fear. A person at the level of courage still feels fear, acutely at times. Courage is not reckless bravado or macho posturing. That is usually just pride in disguise. It is not aggression, and it is not the denial of your feelings. True courage, as Dr. Hawkins defines it, is the quiet, internal willingness to be vulnerable and to act in spite of fear. It is the honest acknowledgement of your shortcomings, your anxieties, and your challenges, followed by the simple but profound declaration, "I can handle this." It is the energy of integrity, of authenticity, of choosing to show up for your own life, exactly as you are. It is the foundational yes to the process of growth. What does a life lived from the level of courage look like? It is a life of exploration and expansion. The world, which once seemed threatening from the level of fear, now appears as a field of interesting opportunities for learning and discovery. You become willing to try new things, to take a class, to learn a new skill, to travel to a place you've never been. You begin to speak your truth, to set boundaries with clarity and kindness, even when it feels uncomfortable. You are no longer willing to betray yourself for the sake of approval. At the level of courage, you develop the capacity to take responsibility for your life. When you make a mistake, you can own it without collapsing into the paralysis of guilt or shame. You see setbacks not as a verdict on your worth, but as valuable feedback, as lessons on the curriculum of your growth. You develop resilience, the ability to get knocked down and get back up, not from stubborn pride, but from a deep inner well of strength. The essence of this dynamic is perfectly captured in the universal experience of a child learning to ride a bicycle. The child, teetering on two wheels for the first time, desperately wants the freedom the older kids have, but the fear of falling, of the scraped knees, and the sting of failure is intensely real. This is the state of fear at 100. The pivotal moment of courage is not when the fear goes away, but when the desire for freedom becomes stronger than the fear of falling. It is the moment the child says, "Okay, you can let go now." This is the leap of faith. In that moment, the child is embracing the wobble, the uncertainty, the very real possibility of pain for the sake of growth. And inevitably, the child falls. They feel the sharp sting of the pavement, the hot flush of embarrassment. This is a moment of potential crisis, a chance to slide back down the map into grief or shame. But courage is the energy that allows the child to get back on the bike. It is the surrender of the momentary pain and humiliation in service of the larger goal. With each attempt, the child is letting go of the fear of failure and strengthening the muscle of courage. And then, the magical moment happens. They find their balance. The wobbling ceases, and they are suddenly gliding, propelled by their own power. The energy that was once fear has been transmuted into the pure, exhilarating thrill of freedom and accomplishment. This is the journey from fear to courage in action. So how is courage cultivated? It is not something you can acquire through willpower or positive thinking alone. Courage is the natural state of the human spirit that is revealed when the lower emotions that are obscuring it are released. It is the sun that was always shining behind the clouds. Every time you consciously feel a wave of fear and allow it to pass through you without resistance, you are strengthening your courage. Every time you let go of the need to be right and surrender the gratification of pride, you are strengthening your courage. Every time you feel the fire of anger and allow it to burn out in your awareness without acting on it, you are strengthening your courage. The practice of letting go is the very method by which you clear away the clouds of the lower self. allowing the radiant, powerful light of your true, courageous nature to shine forth. To step into courage is a monumental achievement. It is the beginning of a whole new life, a life built on a foundation of truth, empowerment, and self-worth. You have broken free from the gravitational pull of negativity that holds most of humanity in its sway. You are now standing at the foothills of the great mountain of human potential, ready to begin the true ascent. Life from this point forward is an adventure, not an ordeal. Living from the level of courage is an exciting, dynamic, and expansive state of being. But the constant striving, the continuous facing of challenges can also be tiring. As you become more comfortable in this new energy, as you grow more confident in your innate ability to handle whatever life brings, a new possibility emerges. The need to constantly prove your courage, to actively fight your battles, begins to subside. It gives way to a more relaxed, flexible, and peaceful way of being. You are now ready to step out of the fray and into the calm, observant space known as the eye of the storm. You are ready to cultivate the effortless power of neutrality. As you stand firmly on the ground of courage, you have proven to yourself that you can face life's challenges. You can feel the fear and act anyway. You can own your truth. You can get back up after you fall. This is an exhilarating and empowering way to live, a life of active engagement, growth, and expansion. But after a time, even the noble effort of being courageous can feel effortful. The constant striving, the continuous need to face down dragons begins to soften. Having established your inner strength, you no longer feel the constant need to prove it. A deep, quiet confidence begins to settle in your bones, and with it comes a profound exhalation of the spirit. You are ready to move from the battlefield of growth to the peaceful valley of being. You are ready to cultivate the serene, unshakable power of neutrality. Calibrating at a level of 250 on the map of consciousness, neutrality represents a significant leap in power and a fundamental shift in perception. It is the energy of the phrase, "It is what it is." Now, it is absolutely critical to distinguish this from the hopeless resignation of apathy. Apathy, down at level 50, says, "Nothing matters, so what's the point in trying?" It is a statement of powerlessness. Neutrality, at 250, looks at the same set of facts and says, "I am not emotionally attached to this outcome, therefore I am free." It is a statement of profound power and liberation. In this state, you are no longer buffeted by the chaotic winds of the world. You have found the calm, silent center within yourself, the eye of the storm. Life, when viewed from the lens of neutrality, ceases to be a dramatic struggle between opposing forces. The need to rigidly categorize every person, every event, every experience as good or bad, right or wrong, simply dissolves. Things are just. A traffic jam is not a personal attack or a disaster. It is a temporary condition of the road. A critical comment from a coworker is not a devastating verdict on your worth. It is simply a collection of words representing their current opinion. A rainy day is not bad weather. It is simply a rainy day. This de-dramatization of life is one of the great hallmarks of the neutral position. You become unhookable. The endless dramas and conflicts that ensnare most people simply wash over you, unable to find any purchase. You feel safe, secure, and fundamentally at ease, not because the world has become perfect, but because you have ceased your inner war with its imperfections. A person operating from neutrality is remarkably easy to be around. They are not argumentative because they have let go of the need to be right. They are not judgmental because they have released the need to feel superior. They are great listeners because they can hear another person's point of view without immediately formulating a rebuttal. They are flexible and adaptable, able to go with the flow without resistance. Because their energy is no longer being consumed by emotional reactions, they are incredibly efficient and effective in the world. They are the calm, practical problem solvers, the steady hand in a crisis, the ones who can see the objective reality of a situation without being blinded by the fog of drama. So how do we cultivate this serene and powerful state? It arises from the consistent letting go of the very things that oppose it. Judgment, rigid positions, and the need to control. It is a deepening of the surrender we practiced with pride. Notice, in a conversation or when reading the news, the inner tension that arises when you encounter an opinion that contradicts your own. Feel that subtle clenching, that inner mobilization of I am right and they are wrong. That energy, that tension, is what you surrender. You let go of the attachment to your viewpoint. This doesn't mean you become an empty shell with no values. It means your sense of self is no longer fused with your opinions. You can hold a preference without needing to go to war for it. The practice is to consciously release the habit of labeling. As you go through your day, simply observe. Observe the flow of traffic, the interactions between people, the changing weather, the thoughts in your own mind, all without slapping a simplistic good or bad sticker on any of it. This practice starves the ego of its favorite food judgment, and in doing so, it liberates an enormous amount of your life force. You begin to trust the flow of life, relinquishing the stressful illusion that you are the general manager of the universe, responsible for controlling every outcome. The state of neutrality is perfectly embodied by the consciousness of a true chess master. A novice player is a victim of their emotions. They feel a rush of pride when they capture a pawn and a wave of despair when their knight is threatened. Their decisions are clouded by fear of loss and desire for victory. They are playing the opponent, playing the drama. The chess master, operating from neutrality, is playing the board. They are playing the objective reality of the game itself. The loss of a piece is not a disaster. It is simply new information. The capture of an opponent's piece is not a triumph. It is merely a development. Because their precious energy is not being squandered on emotional highs and lows, their mind is clear, calm, and open. They can see the entire pattern, anticipate future possibilities, and execute the most effective move with effortless precision. Their power comes not from aggressive force, but from their profound state of non-resistance, from their deep acceptance of what is. To live from neutrality is to become the chess master of your own life. This leads to one of the greatest benefits of arriving at this level: a massive liberation of energy. Think for a moment about how much life force is consumed by the lower states. The energy it takes to constantly worry about the future. The energy it takes to endlessly relitigate the past. The energy required to maintain anger and hold grievances. The energy spent on trying to impress people and defend a fragile pride. It is a colossal, continuous drain on your vitality. Reaching the state of neutrality is like finding and plugging a massive energy leak in the foundation of your being. All of that life force, once wasted on worry, judgment, resistance, and control, now becomes available to you. You feel a new sense of restfulness and vitality, simply because you have stopped fighting an imaginary war. From this calm, stable, and peaceful foundation of neutrality, a new kind of energy can begin to bubble up from within. With our life force no longer being squandered on the friction of resistance, we find ourselves filled with a surplus of positive, creative power. We begin to look out at the world not just with calm acceptance, but with a cheerful desire to participate, to contribute, and to do things well for the sheer joy of it. We are ready to move from the peaceful valley of what is to the bright, productive workshop of what can be. The war is over, and now we are ready and willing to help rebuild the world. We are ready to embrace the dynamic and optimistic power of willingness. As the calm, stable peace of neutrality becomes our new foundation, a beautiful surplus of energy begins to build within us. Our life force, no longer squandered on the friction of judgment and resistance, is now available for a higher purpose. We wake up in the morning feeling not just rested, but restored, with a quiet eagerness to engage with the day. The world no longer feels like something to be passively observed, but like a great workshop calling for our participation. This is the dawn of a new, optimistic light within the soul. We have moved from the quiet valley and are now entering the bright, productive, and cheerful workshop of willingness, which calibrates at a powerful 310 on the map of consciousness. Willingness is the first truly joyful and active state of power. It is the energy of saying a wholehearted and unreserved yes to life. It is a fundamental optimism, but it is not the naive optimism of wishful thinking. It is a robust and grounded confidence, born from the inner strength forged in courage, and the quiet peace cultivated in neutrality. A person in the state of willingness possesses a can-do spirit that is both inspiring and incredibly effective. They look at challenges not as problems, but as interesting opportunities to learn, to contribute, and to grow. Their focus shifts entirely from blame to solutions, from complaint to contribution. One of the defining characteristics of this level is the understanding that all work, when done with the right spirit, has dignity and value. The person operating from willingness is happy to do whatever is needed, regardless of the task. No job is considered beneath them, because they have transcended the prideful need to define themselves by status or title. Their identity comes from a deeper place, from the joy of service and the satisfaction of a job well done. Whether they are the CEO of a major corporation or the person sweeping the floors, they bring the same level of commitment, excellence, and cheerful energy to the task at hand. This is a radical departure from the lower states. Pride says, "I'm too good for this." Anger feels resentful about having to do it. Desire does it only for the reward. Apathy can't muster the energy to do it well. But willingness simply rolls up its sleeves with a smile and asks, "How can I help?" Because of this constructive and cooperative attitude, people at the level of willingness are the pillars of any healthy society. They are the dependable employees, the dedicated volunteers, the helpful neighbors, and the loving parents. They are the backbone of civilization, the ones who actually build, fix, and maintain the world. They are sought after as partners, friends, and colleagues because their energy is uplifting and non-draining. They also possess a remarkable resilience. When they face setbacks or failures, they do not collapse into prolonged periods of grief or self-recrimination. They quickly recover, extract the lesson, and get back to the work of moving forward. Their inner state is so positive that they bounce back from adversity with a speed that seems almost miraculous to those in lower states of consciousness. How do we cultivate this buoyant and productive state of being? We do so by letting go of the very energies that oppose it. The energies of resistance. The primary form of this resistance is what we commonly call laziness or procrastination. These are not, as we are often taught, fundamental character flaws. They are simply habits of resistance, often rooted in underlying fears or apathy. To move into willingness, we must be willing to feel that sensation of resistance, the "I don't feel like it," the "I'll do it later," and consciously surrender it. We feel the heavy, sluggish energy, and instead of obeying it, we let it go, allowing the natural, vibrant life force within us to flow into action. We also must let go of the prideful, "that's not my job" mentality, releasing the ego's attachment to a specific role and embracing the much larger and more fulfilling role of being a force for good in the world. Let us imagine a bright and capable young woman who has just started her dream job at a prestigious company. To her initial disappointment, she is assigned what many would consider grunt work, organizing years of old files, making coffee for meetings, running errands. A person in pride would be deeply insulted, feeling their talents were being wasted. A person in anger would become resentful and bitter. But our protagonist, operating from a state of willingness, sees it differently. She says yes to every task with genuine enthusiasm. She doesn't just organize the files. She studies the old projects, creating a new, intuitive digital archive that uncovers valuable data the company thought was lost. She doesn't just make the coffee. She remembers how everyone takes it, greeting them with a warmth that elevates the entire mood of the meeting before it even begins. She performs these menial tasks with such excellence and cheerful dedication that her attitude becomes a positive force in the office. Her competence, her reliability, and most importantly, her willing spirit do not go unnoticed. Management quickly sees that she is a problem solver and a positive asset. She is rapidly entrusted with far more significant projects and is placed on the fast track for promotion. Her inner state of willingness did not just help her endure the work. It transformed the work and, in doing so, created her own success. This story illustrates a profound spiritual principle. The universe is a great energetic field that mirrors our own output. When we radiate the consistent, positive, helpful, and constructive energy of willingness, we become a living magnet for prosperity and opportunity. It's not just about what you do, It's about the energy with which you do it. People instinctively want to hire, promote, help, and collaborate with someone who radiates this positive, can-do spirit. Opportunities seem to appear as if by magic, because your vibration is now a match for the vibration of success and flow. You have aligned yourself with the universal current of service, and the universe, in turn, generously supports those who support it. Living from the level of willingness creates a beautiful, effective, and deeply satisfying life. We are in harmony with the world around us, joyfully contributing our best and gratefully receiving its bounty in return. We have become a part of the solution, but as we continue to walk this bright path, as our inner confidence and outer effectiveness grow, a deeper realization can begin to dawn within our consciousness. We start to see not just the opportunities in life, but the inherent perfection of life. We begin to intuit that we are not just excellent players in the game. We are, on some profound level, the very creators of the game itself. This insight is the doorway to the next great leap in consciousness, the shift from doing things in the world to taking full responsibility for our world. We are now ready to let go of our remaining resistances and embrace the profound power of acceptance. From the bright, productive workshop of willingness, where we joyfully contribute our energy to the world, a new and even more profound consciousness can begin to emerge. As we continue to say yes to life, we start to notice the intricate, harmonious patterns in the tapestry of our existence. We see how past challenges led to current strengths, how every closed door guided us to an open one. A sense of awe begins to dawn, a quiet intuition that nothing happens by accident. This is the doorway to a great awakening. It is the leap from being an excellent participant in life to realizing that you are the very source of your life's experience. We have arrived at the profound, life-altering state of acceptance, which calibrates at a powerful 350 on the map of consciousness. To enter the level of acceptance is to experience the end of all victimhood. This is the level where you take 100% responsibility for your own consciousness, and therefore, for your own life. The tendency to blame anything or anyone outside of yourself for your experience completely dissolves. You understand, on a deep cellular level, that the outer world is a mirror, a perfect reflection of your inner state. Your consciousness is the projector, and life is the screen. Everything you experience, the joy and the sorrow, the success and the challenges, the love and the conflict, has been drawn to you by the vibration of your own being, for the purpose of your own learning and evolution. This is not an intellectual concept, it is a lived reality. The questions, "Why is this happening to me?" or "Whose fault is this?" are replaced by the powerful inquiry, "What in me has created this, and what is this here to teach me?" This radical ownership is the source of ultimate power, for if you are the source of your experience, you have the power to change it from within. However, it is essential to distinguish this from self-blame, which is the energy of guilt. Acceptance is not about blaming yourself for negative experiences. It is about empowering yourself by recognizing your role as the creator. Likewise, it is crucial to understand that acceptance is not passivity or resignation. This is a common and critical misunderstanding. Resignation, which comes from apathy, is the powerless feeling that a negative situation is hopeless and cannot be changed. Acceptance, on the other hand, is a state of immense power. It is the act of looking at a situation exactly as it is, and ceasing all internal resistance to it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to condone it. You simply have to stop the inner war with the reality of what is. And in that moment of non-resistance, you reclaim all of the energy you were wasting on fighting reality, freeing it up to be used for wise, calm, and effective change, if change is what you choose. The master surfer is the perfect embodiment of acceptance. The surfer does not try to control the ocean. To do so would be absurd and futile. They do not get angry at the waves or curse the tide. Instead, they accept the immense power of the ocean as a given. They study its rhythms, feel its currents, and respect its nature. Then, in an act of beautiful surrender, they align themselves with the energy of a rising wave, not fighting its power, but harmonizing with it, using its tremendous force to have a graceful, thrilling, and joyful ride. Life, for the person in acceptance, becomes like the ocean for the master surfer. You stop fighting the waves. You stop seeing them as threats. You learn to read their energy, and you use the very challenges of life to propel you forward with grace and skill. You are no longer battered by life, you are dancing with it. It is at this level of consciousness that the law of attraction transitions from a hit-or-miss concept into a consistent, observable reality. In all the lower states, our energy is contradictory. We might desire wealth, but simultaneously vibrate with a fear of failure or a feeling of shameful unworthiness. We send a mixed, messy signal out to the universe, but at the level of acceptance, this inner conflict ceases. Our inner resistance dissolves. Because we are at peace with what is, we no longer radiate the needy, desperate energy of lack. Our dominant vibration becomes one of wholeness, peace, and trust. The universe, which is a perfect mirror, has no choice but to reflect this wholeness back to us. Synchronicities become frequent. The right people, the perfect opportunities, and the needed resources seem to appear as if by magic. Life takes on a quality of effortless flow, not because we are trying so hard to control it, but precisely because we have finally let go of the need to. How do we arrive at this state of grace? We do so by letting go of the deepest and most fundamental positions of the ego. The first and greatest surrender is the release of the need for control. It is a profound act of trust, relinquishing the ego's frantic attempts to manage every detail and outcome of life, and instead, trusting the infinite intelligence of life itself to orchestrate events for our highest good. We must also let go of the rigid polarities of good and bad, right and wrong. From the vantage point of acceptance, we begin to see the perfection in the entire tapestry of existence. We see that the perceived bad events were necessary catalysts for growth, and the perceived wrong turns led us to our greatest discoveries. We see that it is all perfect, all purposeful, all sacred. We stop judging the play and begin to simply admire the breathtaking beauty and complexity of its plot. This is the end of struggle. It is the end of the war with yourself, the war with others, and the war with God, or life itself. When you are in a state of acceptance, you feel deeply safe, cared for, and connected to everything. A sense of belonging pervades your experience. You see the beauty in ordinary things, and your heart is filled with a quiet sense of gratitude. Forgiveness becomes natural and easy, for both yourself and others, because you understand that everyone is simply doing the best they can from their own level of consciousness. You have found the peace that passes all understanding, because it is a peace that is not conditional on life looking a certain way. It is a peace that arises from within and is therefore unshakable. Living from this state of profound acceptance, we see the world with new eyes. Life is no longer a series of problems to be solved, but a beautiful, unfolding mystery to be lived. And now, with our hearts at peace and our spirit free from the friction of conflict, we are able to engage the most powerful tool of the human mind, not as a master to be served, but as a faithful servant to be wisely employed. We can now approach the world of concepts, data, and logic without being trapped by it, using its clarity to navigate the world while remaining centered in the wisdom of the heart. We are ready to embrace and utilize the clear, bright light of reason. Having found peace in the state of acceptance, where the war with reality is finally over, our entire being comes into a state of profound harmony. With the noisy chatter of emotional conflict silenced, the human mind is at last free to operate at its highest and purest capacity. We now ascend to the level of reason, which calibrates at a formidable 400 on the map of consciousness. This is the realm of the great minds that have shaped our world. The Einsteins, the Newtons, the Freuds, the Platos. It is the level of Nobel Prize winners, brilliant physicians, and Supreme Court justices. It represents the pinnacle of the intellect's ability to abstract, to analyze, to conceptualize, and to solve the intricate problems of the material world. Before we explore its limitations, we must first pay homage to the immense power and beauty of reason. When grounded in the integrity of the lower levels of power, the rational mind is one of humanity's greatest gifts. It is the faculty that allows us to see patterns in chaos, to understand the laws of physics, to compose symphonies, to design intricate architecture, and to develop the life-saving technologies of modern medicine. Reason at this high level is clear, objective, and dispassionate. It can handle enormous amounts of complex data, synthesizing it into coherent theories and elegant solutions. It is the part of us that loves learning, that is driven by curiosity, and that finds deep satisfaction in the intellectual pursuit of truth. It is the clear, bright, and powerful light that illuminates the mechanics of how the universe works. However, for the spiritual seeker, this powerful and luminous faculty can become a beautiful and elegant trap. The intellect is a master at creating tools for understanding reality. It creates words, symbols, models, charts, and concepts. The trap of reason is when we begin to mistake the tool for the reality it describes. We fall in love with the map and forget the existence of the territory. We can read 1,000 books on the subject of love, becoming a world-renowned expert, yet never have the actual experience of it. We can mistake the chemical formula for water, H2O, for the life-quenching experience of a cool drink on a hot day. The intellect can describe the box with exquisite precision, but it can never know what is inside it. This leads to the condition famously known as paralysis by analysis. The mind at the 400 level is so adept at seeing all the variables, all the potential pitfalls, and all the complexities of any given situation, that it can become frozen, unable to make a decision or take action. Furthermore, reason operates on the principles of logic and linear causality. It is most comfortable in a world where A plus B equals C. It struggles profoundly with the non-linear, the paradoxical, and the transcendent nature of spiritual reality. The intellect cannot compute forgiveness. It cannot measure grace. It cannot logically deduce the existence of God. It stands before the gates of a deeper reality, and, finding nothing it can measure or define, often concludes that nothing is there. This is why Dr. Hawkins stated that the intellect, for all its brilliance, can be one of the greatest obstacles to enlightenment. One simply cannot think one's way into a state of being that is beyond thought itself. The story of a brilliant neuroscientist perfectly illustrates this elegant trap. He is a master of reason, a giant in his field. He has dedicated his life to studying the human brain's response to love. He can show you the fMRI scans, pointing out exactly which regions light up. He can detail the precise cascade of hormones and neurotransmitters, the oxytocin, the dopamine, the vasopressin that create the feeling of bonding and attachment. He can write the definitive textbook on the subject, winning accolades for his intellectual grasp of the phenomenon. He understands the mechanics of love better than anyone on the planet. Yet, his own life is sterile and isolated. His relationships are transactional and shallow. He is detached, analytical, and cut off from his own heart. He can explain love, but he cannot feel it. He has created a flawless map of the territory, but has never set foot in the beautiful country it describes. He is dying of thirst while holding a perfect chemical diagram of water. How then do we move beyond this limitation without discarding the mind's incredible gifts? The surrender required at this level is the letting go of the intellect's claim to be the ultimate authority. It is the release of the need to have everything explained, categorized, and understood intellectually before we will allow ourselves to experience it. It is the cultivation of a deep trust in another way of knowing, intuition. Intuition is the wisdom of the heart. It is a holistic, non-linear faculty that operates faster than thought and provides answers without showing its work. It is the gut feeling, the inner nudge, the flash of insight that arrives fully formed. To transcend the level of reason is to learn to honor this intuitive knowing, even when it defies logic. It is the willingness to embrace mystery, to be comfortable with paradox, and to humbly admit that the five senses and the rational mind are not the only tools for perceiving reality. It is the conscious shift from thinking about life to directly experiencing it. This does not mean we become irrational or foolish. It means we recontextualize the role of the mind. Reason is no longer the king on the throne. It becomes the wise and faithful servant to the heart. When guided by a higher state of consciousness, the intellect becomes an extraordinarily powerful tool for good. A person established in love can use their rational mind to devise brilliant systems for distributing food to the hungry. A person established in peace can use the clarity of their intellect to articulate profound spiritual truths in a way that can awaken others. The heart, or the intuition, sets the destination of what and the why, and the brilliant mind is then employed to figure out the most efficient and effective way to get there, the how. The journey beyond reason is not about destroying the mind, but about transcending it. It is the process of integrating our intellectual capacity into a larger, more holistic consciousness, where the wisdom of the heart leads the way. It is to honor the mind for the magnificent servant it is, while gently releasing it from the impossible burden of being a god. When the brilliant mind finally and willingly bows in service to the heart, when it lets go of its claim to be the ultimate arbiter of truth, it creates an open space in our being. It is into this sacred space that an even greater power can now emerge. A power that does not analyze, but knows. A power that does not measure, but embraces. A power that is the very fabric, motive, and essence of the universe itself. We are now ready to step beyond the clear, cool light of the mind and into the radiant, unconditional warmth of the heart. We are ready to experience the energy of love, as the clear, cool light of the rational mind gently bows in service to the wisdom of the heart. We open ourselves to an entirely new dimension of reality. We cross a threshold from understanding about life to merging with the very energy of life. It is here that we encounter the most powerful healing force in the universe, the energy that is the ultimate aim of all spiritual paths, and the very fabric from which creation is woven. We have arrived at the radiant, unconditional state of love, which calibrates at a magnificent 500 on the map of consciousness. Before we proceed, we must take a moment to purify our understanding of this word. The energy of love at level 500 has very little to do with the concept that our culture calls love. It is not the emotional, possessive, dramatic, and often painful attachment between two people that is the subject of countless songs and movies. That emotion, while beautiful in its own way, is often a volatile mixture of desire, pride, jealousy, and fear. It is conditional, selective, and subject to change. Unconditional love, as a state of consciousness, is none of these things. It is a steady, unchanging, and impersonal state of being. It is not something you get from another person. It is what you are. It is the sun, shining its warmth on all things equally, without judgment and without condition. The hallmark of this state is forgiveness, but even that word is not quite right. A person established in love does not need to go through a process of forgiving, because they have never condemned in the first place. From this elevated perspective, you can see the innocence in everyone. You understand that every cruel word, every selfish act, every mistake is simply a product of a person's own pain and their current limited level of awareness. You see that people are not their behaviors. They are souls doing the best they can with the understanding they have. From this vantage point, blame becomes an energetic impossibility. You look upon the whole world, with all its flaws and its beauty, and you feel only a deep and abiding compassion. Love does not ignore the darkness. It simply focuses its powerful gaze on the light that is eternally present within all beings. And by that very focus, it amplifies that light. To be in the presence of this energy is to be healed. The energy field of a person abiding in love is so coherent, so powerful, and so peaceful that it has a tangible, calming effect on everyone around them. This is the principle of energetic entrainment. Just as a chaotic room full of grandfather clocks with swinging pendulums will eventually all synchronize to the rhythm of the largest, most powerful clock, so too will our own chaotic, lower energy states of fear, anger, and grief naturally be uplifted and harmonized by the powerful, coherent field of love. This explains the phenomenon of saints and great spiritual teachers, whose mere presence could bring peace to troubled minds and healing to sick bodies. They are not doing anything to you. Their very being is a transmission of grace that reminds your own soul of its true, peaceful nature. At the level of love, the linear, analytical mind is fully superseded by the power of intuition. Love is holistic. It does not need to break things down into parts to understand them. It grasps the essence of the whole in an instant. A person in this state has an uncanny ability to know the truth of a situation without needing access to all the facts. They can perceive the underlying energy, the core of the issue, immediately. This is the source of true wisdom, which is not about accumulating information, but about direct, intuitive perception. The heart knows, and it knows in a way that is faster, deeper, and more complete than the mind can ever hope to be. Imagine a gardener tending to their garden. A conditional gardener, operating from the lower levels, might only love the prize-winning roses. They grow frustrated with the plants that don't bloom perfectly. They get angry at the weeds, and they are anxious about pests. Their love for their garden is conditional upon its performance and its appearance. But the unconditional gardener, the one who is an embodiment of love, has a different relationship entirely. They cherish the magnificent rose, but they also see the beauty and purpose in the humble earthworm that aerates the soil. They tend to the struggling seedling with the same gentle care as they do the mighty oak tree. They understand that the weeds are simply plants in the wrong place, and they work with the ecosystem, not against it. They love the entirety of the garden, the whole interconnected dance of life, in all its perfection and its imperfection. To abide in the state of love is to become this gardener for the world. What, then, must be surrendered to enter this sublime state of being? The path to love requires the final and most complete letting go. First, we must surrender all grievances. This means forgiving everyone for everything, completely, finally, and without exception. This is not done as a favor to them. It is done as an act of profound self-liberation. To hold a grievance is to hold a hot coal of anger or resentment in your own heart, poisoning your connection to the universe. To release it is to open your own heart to the flow of grace. Secondly, we must let go of all judgment, releasing the last vestiges of the right, wrong, good, bad mentality, and choosing to see the world only through the eyes of compassion. And finally, the greatest surrender of all is the letting go of the identification with the small, separate, personal self. It is the release of the I with its personal history, its collection of preferences, its fears, and its ambitions. Love is the direct experience of oneness, the realization that the separation we feel is an illusion. It is the recognition that the same divine consciousness that animates you animates every person, every animal, every tree, and every star. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. To let go into love is to surrender the illusion of being the drop and to merge with the reality of being the ocean. This is our true nature. Love is not something we have to create or build. It is the reality of what we are, buried under layers of fear, grief, and false beliefs. The entire path of letting go is simply a process of removing all the blocks we have placed in the way of love's awareness. It is the ultimate healing force, the ultimate reality, and the ultimate truth of our being. It is the home we have been searching for all along. And as we learn to abide in this state of unconditional love, where our heart is open and our spirit is at one with the totality of life, a natural and beautiful consequence begins to emerge. The steady, radiant warmth of love can spontaneously begin to bubble up, effervescing into an unshakable and profound delight in existence itself. The deep peace of love gives way to the blissful expression of its presence. We have come to the inner fountain that never runs dry. We are ready to experience the intrinsic happiness that is joy. As we learn to consistently abide in the radiant, unconditional warmth of love, a miraculous transformation begins. The steady, deep peace of the loving heart starts to effervesce, to bubble up into a spontaneous and unshakable delight. It is as though the sun, in its constant and silent shining, suddenly breaks into joyful song. This is the emergence of the state of joy, which calibrates at an exalted 540 on the map of consciousness. Here, we must make one of the most important distinctions on the entire spiritual path. The distinction between the conditional emotion of happiness and the unconditional state of joy. Happiness, as the world knows it, is an external event. It is dependent on circumstances. We feel happy because we got the promotion, because someone loves us, because the weather is beautiful. It is fleeting and unreliable, for as soon as the external conditions change, the happiness vanishes. Joy, on the other hand, is not an emotion at all. It is a permanent and profound state of being that arises from within. It is not dependent on anything or anyone. It is the intrinsic delight that comes from the very fact of existence itself. A person in the state of joy is joyful not because of what is happening, but simply because they are. This joy is unshakable. It remains present even in the midst of worldly turmoil or personal challenge, a constant, bubbling fountain of bliss within the soul. To view the world from the level of joy is to see everything as breathtakingly beautiful and exquisitely perfect. The perfection that was intellectually understood in acceptance and compassionately felt in love is now experienced as a continuous, rapturous delight. Colors seem more vibrant, sounds are more harmonious, and the simple act of breathing is a source of profound pleasure. In this state, the world is seen as a magical, shimmering display of divine light. Every event, no matter how ordinary it may seem to others, is perceived as a perfect, synchronous miracle. The flight of a bird, the pattern of frost on a window pane, the smile of a stranger are seen as love notes from the universe, confirming the benevolent and playful nature of reality. This is the energy field of the great saints, spiritual avatars, and advanced healers throughout history. Their joy is not a personal achievement, but a divine quality that radiates from them, having a transformative effect on everyone they encounter. To be in their presence is to have your own heart lightened, your own burdens eased. This is because the energy field of joy is so intensely powerful and coherent that it can trigger spontaneous healings and what the world calls miracles. Their presence is a constant living demonstration of life's ultimate potential, a silent transmission that awakens the memory of joy in all who are near. People and animals are naturally drawn to them, feeling an inexplicable sense of safety and bliss in their aura. Beings at this level exhibit an almost infinite patience, because from their perspective, time is an illusion and everything is already perfect as it is. They can witness world events that would cause others extreme distress, yet they remain in a state of profound peace, seeing the hidden perfection in the grand cosmic play. The essence of joy is beautifully captured in the simple image of a small child at play. Watch a child who is completely absorbed in building with blocks or simply running through a grassy field. They are not trying to accomplish a goal. They are not worried about whether they are playing correctly or what others might think of them. Their profound happiness comes not from the blocks or the field, but from the pure, uninhibited, and total absorption in the act of playing itself. The doing and the being have become one. The activity is its own reward. The entire spiritual journey, in many ways, is a return to this state of grace, the reclaiming of our ability to become completely immersed in the present moment, free from the commentary of the ego and the burden of purpose. Joy is the ultimate expression of this mindful presence, this delight in the isness of now. What is the final, subtle surrender that allows the steady warmth of love to effervesce into the bubbling bliss of joy? It is the letting go of the last and most subtle of all expectations. The expectation that the world should be a certain way. Even at the sublime level of love, there can remain a compassionate desire for the world to be more peaceful, for others to awaken, for suffering to end. Joy arises when even this noble preference is surrendered. It is the realization that the world, exactly as it is in this very moment, with all of its light and all of its shadow, is a perfect and complete expression of divinity. It is the shift from accepting reality to actively delighting in it. It is looking upon all of creation and seeing nothing out of place, nothing to be fixed, but only a flawless and breathtaking divine masterpiece, unfolding in perfect time. You do not need to build or acquire joy. It is not a distant peak to be conquered. It is the very nature of your own consciousness, the fundamental quality of your spirit. The entire process of letting go that we have explored together, releasing shame, guilt, fear, anger, pride, and even our most subtle attachments, has not been about creating joy. It has been a process of excavation. Imagine a pristine, crystal-clear spring, buried for years under layers of mud, rock, and debris. The path of surrender is the work of lovingly clearing away that debris. We did not create the spring. We simply uncovered what was always there. When the last of the blockages are removed, the spring of joy begins to flow naturally, effortlessly, and inexhaustibly. It is our birthright. This state of joy is the exhilarating freedom of the untethered spirit. It is the celebration of existence itself, a cosmic dance of gratitude and bliss. Yet, even in this sublime dance, there is still motion. still the effervescent expression of delight. What happens when even this joyful bubbling calms? What happens when the fountain settles into a vast, silent, and crystal-clear lake, so profound that it reflects the entire cosmos without a single ripple? The energy becomes so total, so all-encompassing, that it transcends all qualities, all descriptions, and all dualities. We have reached the final summit of human consciousness, the great silence from which all sound emerges, the stillness from which all movement is born. We are now ready to experience the ultimate reality of peace. The blissful, effervescent dance of joy, in its own perfect time, begins to quiet. The bubbling fountain of delight settles. The outward expression of bliss turns inward, becoming so profound, so all-encompassing, that it transcends all qualities and descriptions. The spirit, having celebrated its freedom, now comes home to rest in its own source. We have arrived at the final summit of human consciousness, the silent, majestic peak from which the entire landscape of existence can be seen. We have come to the great stillness, the ultimate reality of peace, which calibrates at an exalted 600 on the map of consciousness. To speak of peace is to attempt the impossible, for it is a state that lies beyond all words, all thoughts, and all concepts. It is the reality pointed to by the great mystics of all traditions, referred to as Satori, Samadhi, or the peace of God, which passeth all understanding. It is not merely the absence of conflict or noise. It is a living, vibrant, and profound stillness that is the source from which all noise and all conflict emerge. It is a state of absolute perfection, totality, and completeness. From within this state, there is no sense of lack, no feeling of need, no impulse of desire, and no movement of becoming. There is only the perfect, infinite, and eternal isness of the ever-present now. The thinking mind, with its endless labels, judgments, and analysis, becomes completely silent, not through force, but because it has been utterly subsumed by a reality infinitely greater than itself. The primary characteristic of this sublime state is the dissolution of the personal I. The feeling of being a separate individual self, a small person encapsulated inside a body, looking out at a separate world, begins to melt away. The boundary between the observer and the observed disappears. This is the state of non-duality, the direct experience of oneness. You do not simply look at a tree and appreciate its beauty. You are the tree. You are the light filtering through its leaves. You are the silent earth that holds its roots. Your awareness is no longer confined to your physical form. It has expanded to include everything. The sense of a personal self is seen for what it has always been, a temporary construct of the mind. What remains is the vast, impersonal, and universal self, the silent witnessing awareness that is the true identity of all that exists. Imagine the consciousness as a great ocean. The surface is the realm of our everyday mind and emotions. It is a place of constant motion, waves of anger, swells of grief, storms of fear and drama. It is chaotic, unpredictable, and forever changing. The spiritual path of letting go is like a slow, deep dive beneath this turbulent surface. As you descend, the turmoil begins to fade. It becomes quieter, calmer, the light more diffuse. You are still aware of the storm raging far above, but it no longer affects you. You continue to descend, deeper and deeper, into the profound stillness of the abyss. Finally, you reach the very bottom of the ocean. Here, there is a realm of absolute silence, immense pressure that is simultaneously a state of perfect equilibrium. You are the stillness of the deep. You are the silent, aware presence that holds the entire ocean in its being. This is the state of peace. From this state, a person still functions in the world. They may walk, talk, eat, and even work. But the inner experience is radically different. The sense of a personal doer behind the actions has vanished. The body moves, the words are spoken, but it is all happening effortlessly, spontaneously, and with perfect appropriateness, guided by the infinite intelligence of the universe itself. This is the Taoist concept of effortless action, or action without a striver. You become a flawless instrument through which life plays its divine music. There is no feeling of effort, no sense of strain, and no anxiety about the outcome, because the one who would have felt those things is no longer there. How is such a state attained? It is the natural and inevitable result of the final and ultimate act of surrender. Having let go of the lower emotions, one now learns to let go of the higher ones. You let go of the attachment to courage, to acceptance, even to the bliss of joy. You let go of all thoughts as they arise. You let go of all sensory perceptions. You let go of all concepts, including the very concept of letting go itself. Finally, in the ultimate act of faith, you surrender the one who is surrendering. You let go of the subtle feeling of being the one who is meditating or seeking. When everything that can be let go of has been released, what remains is that which is eternal, unchangeable, and cannot be let go of. That is the self, the Atman, the Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature. It is the silent, ever-present, peaceful awareness that was there before your birth and will be there after your body's death. It is your true and only home. To touch this state of profound peace, even for a fleeting moment, is to be changed forever. The search is over. You have discovered that the kingdom of heaven is, and always was, within you. You realize that you were never separate from the perfection you were seeking. You were only dreaming that you were. The journey up the great mountain of consciousness is complete. You have arrived at the summit, but our exploration here is not quite finished. The ultimate challenge for the awakened consciousness is to learn how to integrate this profound realization into the fabric of everyday life. We must now learn how to bring the wisdom and serenity of these higher states down from the silent summit and into the bustling marketplaces and noisy living rooms of our world. To do this, we will now turn our attention to two of life's most practical and important arenas, the areas that present us with our greatest challenges and, therefore, our most profound opportunities for continued growth. Our first application will be in the complex and often charged realm of our relationships. Having ascended to the serene summit of peace, having touched the silent, eternal truth of our own being, the journey now turns from vertical ascent to horizontal integration. It is not enough to experience these sublime states in the quiet of meditation. The true test of spiritual mastery is to bring this newfound consciousness down from the mountain and into the complex, often messy, realities of our everyday lives. And there is no greater spiritual gymnasium, no more potent dojo for our practice than the realm of our relationships with others. It is here, in our interactions with partners, family, friends, and colleagues, that our unhealed wounds, our hidden expectations, and our deepest fears are most effectively triggered, providing us with constant and profound opportunities to let go. The source of virtually all conflict in relationships can be traced to a single root: the ego's relentless attempt to control the other person. Fueled by a set of unspoken and often unconscious expectations, we believe our pain or anger, our hurt, our disappointment is caused by what the other person did or did not do. But this is an illusion. The pain is not caused by their behavior. It is caused by our own inner resistance to their behavior. It is caused by the demand, arising from our own ego, that they be different than they are. When we shift our focus from trying to change the other person to surrendering our own inner reaction, the entire dynamic of the relationship is transformed. Let us apply the mechanism of letting go to the common triggers that arise in our closest connections. Consider the familiar sting of anger or irritation. Your partner, for the 100th time, forgets to do the thing you asked them to do. The old pattern would be to either express the anger through nagging and criticism, or to suppress it and seethe in resentful silence. The path of surrender is to first pause. Before you speak or act, you turn your attention inward. You acknowledge the hot flash of irritation rising in your chest. You let go of the mental story: they are so disrespectful, they never listen to me, I have to do everything around here, and you focus solely on the physical sensation of the anger. You breathe into it, allow it to be there, and let it burn itself out in your awareness. Once the emotional charge has dissipated, you are in a state of calm clarity. From this peaceful place, you can now address the situation effectively. Honey, when this task doesn't get done, the story I tell myself is that you don't value my time. Can we find a new way to handle this together? The issue is the same, but because you have surrendered your own reaction first, the interaction is transformed from a battle into a collaborative problem-solving session. Or consider the agonizing energy of jealousy. This is a potent cocktail of fear, the fear of loss and abandonment and desire, the possessive need to own another person's attention and affection. When you feel that familiar sickening clench of jealousy, the practice is to again turn inward. Let go of the fearful, paranoid stories your mind is creating. Instead, focus on the raw sensation of insecurity in your gut. Feel that needy, grasping energy without judgment. Surrender the feeling that your wholeness is dependent on another person's fidelity. As you consistently let go of this underlying fear, you will find that you can love more freely and trust more deeply, liberating both yourself and your partner from the prison of suspicion. This leads us to the evolution of relationships from the lower levels of consciousness to the higher ones. Relationships based in the realm of force are transactional. They are founded on need. I need you to make me happy. I need you to validate my worth. I need you to fill my emptiness. Two people, each feeling an inner lack, come together like two vacuums, each trying to suck happiness and fulfillment from the other. This is a recipe for codependency and inevitable conflict, because no human being can permanently fill another's inner void. Relationships based in the realm of power, however, are transformational. They are founded on giving. The attitude is not, "What can I get?" but "What can I give?" It is the coming together of two individuals who have already cultivated their own inner source of happiness and peace. They do not come to the relationship to get love, but to share the abundance of love that is already overflowing from within them. The relationship is not the source of their joy. It is a beautiful venue for the expression of their joy. This kind of partnership is uplifting, supportive, and free from the drama of unmet needs, because both individuals have taken 100% responsibility for their own inner state. This journey from a needy to a giving love is made possible by embracing one of the most profound spiritual truths about relationships. They are mirrors. The universe, in its infinite wisdom and compassion, brings into our lives the perfect people to show us what we still need to heal within ourselves. That person who pushes your buttons more than anyone else on earth is not your tormentor. They are your greatest teacher, your guru in disguise. They are a perfect mirror, reflecting back to you the unsurrendered energy that is still resident in your own consciousness. If you constantly feel criticized by your partner, the universe is showing you that you have an unhealed sensitivity to criticism, an attachment to pride that is ready to be released. If you constantly feel controlled by others, the universe is showing you an inner reservoir of anger and resistance that is asking to be surrendered. To see this is to change the game entirely. You stop blaming the mirror for the reflection. Instead, you can look at the person who is triggering you and, at least internally, thank them. Thank you for showing me this pocket of fear I was unaware of. Thank you for revealing this attachment to my own way that was ready to be let go. This shift from blame to gratitude is a monumental leap into the consciousness of acceptance, and it is the secret to creating peace not only in your relationships, but in your own heart. Ultimately, the path to creating beautiful, harmonious, and loving relationships is not about finding the perfect partner. It is about becoming the perfect partner by relentlessly letting go of everything within you that is not love. It is about ceasing all attempts to control, manipulate, or change others, and dedicating yourself wholeheartedly to surrendering your own inner reactions, your own grievances, and your own fears. It is about making the happiness of your own inner world your primary responsibility. As you do this, you become a haven of peace, and by the law of attraction, you will either find that your current relationships are miraculously transformed, or you will effortlessly attract a partner who resonates with the same frequency of love and wholeness that you now embody. And as we begin to apply these profound principles to our relationships, creating harmony and peace where there was once friction and conflict, we start to notice a remarkable effect not just in our homes, but within our own skin. The chronic stress of emotional turmoil begins to dissipate. We feel lighter, calmer, more vibrant. We come to the direct realization that the state of our mind and our heart is inextricably linked to the state of our physical body. We are now ready to explore one of the most practical and life-changing applications of this work: letting go for physical and mental well-being. As we cultivate peace in our outer world by transforming our relationships, we inevitably begin to notice a corresponding peace-taking root in our inner world, the world of our own physical body. The chronic stress of emotional conflict begins to fade, and with it, a new sense of vitality and well-being emerges. We come to the direct and profound realization that our mind and our body are not two separate entities, but a completely interconnected, unified field of consciousness. The body is a perfect and faithful mirror, reflecting with absolute precision the state of our mind and the quality of our emotions. We are now ready to explore one of the most practical and life-changing applications of this work: letting go for physical and mental well-being. In the conventional view, illness is often seen as a mechanical failure, a stroke of bad luck, or a genetic inevitability. But from a higher perspective, we understand that our thoughts and feelings are not abstract, fleeting events. They are concrete, biochemical realities. Every emotion we experience triggers a cascade of hormones and neurotransmitters that have a powerful and immediate effect on our physiology. Suppressed negative emotions, held in our energy field for years or even decades, create a state of chronic stress that is the fertile ground for a vast array of physical diseases. Let us look at this through the lens of our map of consciousness. The low-energy states of shame and guilt are energetically depleting. They are associated with a weakened immune system, leaving the body vulnerable to infections and chronic illnesses. The energy of chronic, unresolved fear keeps the body in a perpetual fight-or-flight mode. This state floods the system with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which, over time, can lead to adrenal fatigue, anxiety disorders, poor digestion, and a host of other stress-related conditions. Suppressed anger, as we have seen, creates a state of constant inner pressure, which has long been linked to hypertension, heart disease, and various inflammatory conditions. To hold on to these negative emotions is, quite literally, to poison the body. Therefore, the practice of letting go is not just a path to spiritual freedom, it is one of the most powerful forms of preventative medicine available to us. Every surrendered feeling is a dose of potent, holistic medicine for the soul, which in turn becomes medicine for the body. When we consciously let go of a negative emotional state, our physiology immediately responds. The body shifts out of the stressed, defensive posture of the sympathetic nervous system and into the calm, healing state of the parasympathetic nervous system, also known as the rest and digest mode. It is only in this relaxed state that the body can properly heal, regenerate, and maintain its natural equilibrium. The tangible benefits are immense and well documented. Blood pressure begins to normalize, digestion improves, the immune system functions more effectively, and sleep becomes deeper and more restorative. You begin to feel at home in your own skin, inhabiting a body that feels like a safe and peaceful place to be. One of the most insidious traps in this area is the fear of illness itself. In a culture saturated with health warnings and terrifying news about new diseases, it is easy to become anxious about our physical state. This health anxiety, or hypochondria, is a perfect example of how our thoughts can create our reality. When we are constantly in fear of getting sick, our body responds to the fear as if the illness were already present. We create the very stress response that makes us more vulnerable to disease. This is the tragic power of the nocebo effect, the opposite of the placebo effect, where negative expectation can create negative physical outcomes. By learning to let go of the fear about a potential illness, by surrendering our anxious thoughts about the future of our health, we are taking one of the most powerful steps possible to ensure our continued well-being. The story of a man with chronic back pain provides a powerful illustration of this mind-body link. For years, he suffered from debilitating pain that no physical treatment could resolve. He tried physiotherapy, medication, chiropractic adjustments, and more, all with only temporary relief. He saw his body as a broken-down machine that had betrayed him. Finally, a wise therapist asked him a different kind of question. When did the pain begin, and what was happening in your life at that time? The man realized the pain had started during a period of intense and prolonged conflict at his job, where he felt trapped and disrespected by a tyrannical boss. For years, he had swallowed his rage, coming home every day seething with unexpressed resentment. The chronic tension in his back was the physical embodiment of his suppressed emotional state. His back was literally carrying the heavy weight of his anger. He then began to use the letting go technique, not on the physical pain, but on the underlying emotion. He would sit quietly each day and give permission for the years of stored rage and resentment to finally surface. As he surrendered this massive reservoir of toxic emotional energy, he felt a corresponding release in his physical body. The chronic tension in his back muscles began to dissolve, and the pain, which had plagued him for years, began to fade away. His body wasn't broken. It was simply speaking to him, and he had finally learned to listen. This leads to a powerful technique for working directly with existing physical pain or discomfort. Our instinctive reaction to a painful sensation is to resist it. We tense up around it. We hate it. We mentally fight against it. This resistance, however, does not alleviate the pain. It actually adds a secondary layer of mental and emotional suffering on top of the primary physical sensation. The practice of surrender invites us to do the opposite. You locate the sensation of pain in the body. You consciously let go of the mental labeled pain, and you release the story about how terrible it is. You simply observe it as a pure, raw sensation. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it sharp? Is it dull? You breathe into it. You surround it with a calm, non-judgmental awareness. You accept the sensation without resistance. Paradoxically, when you cease the inner war with the sensation, its intensity often decreases dramatically. The secondary layer of suffering dissolves, and the body, no longer fighting itself, can engage its natural healing mechanisms far more effectively. Your body is your wisest teacher and your most faithful friend. Its symptoms are not random punishments, but loving messages from your subconscious, guiding you to the areas within your emotional life that are calling for healing and release. By learning to listen to these messages, to honor their wisdom, and to let go of the underlying emotional energies they represent, you become an active and powerful co-creator in the miracle of your own health. You move from a consciousness of fear and fragility to one of vitality, resilience, and profound well-being. Having journeyed from the deepest valleys of consciousness to its highest peaks, and having learned to apply these profound principles to our relationships and our own physical bodies, our grand exploration is now drawing to a close. It is time to pause, to look back upon the path we have traveled, and to integrate the ultimate message of this life-changing journey. Our long journey together is now complete. We began in a state of quiet struggle, using the metaphor of a great, colorful beach ball, representing all of our suppressed emotions, being held with immense effort just beneath the surface of the water. We felt the strain, the tension, the constant, draining work of keeping our fears, our griefs, and our angers hidden from view. Guided by the profound wisdom of Dr. David R. Hawkins, we embarked on a courageous exploration of our inner world. We descended into the darkest valleys of shame and guilt, and found the willingness to shine a light there. We navigated the disorienting fogs of fear, the consuming fires of anger, and we learned to step down from the fragile throne of pride. Together, we crossed the great threshold into courage, and began the joyful ascent into the realms of true power. We rested in the peaceful valley of neutrality. We rolled up our sleeves with the cheerful optimism of willingness, and we experienced the profound liberation of acceptance, where the war with reality finally ended. From there, we soared into the higher states of being, employing the clear light of reason as a tool, feeling the radiant warmth of unconditional love, touching the effervescent bliss of joy, and finally, coming to rest in the silent, all-encompassing summit of peace. We have walked the entire spectrum of human consciousness, and we have done so with one simple, powerful key in our hand: the mechanism of surrender. If there is but one essential truth to take with you from this entire experience, let it be this: the freedom, peace, and love you have been seeking are not at some distant destination. They are your own essential nature, patiently waiting to be uncovered. Your happiness is not dependent on changing the world outside of you, but only on ceasing your resistance to the world inside of you. The universe is not a hostile force, punishing you with difficult people and challenging situations. It is a compassionate and intelligent teacher, lovingly presenting you with a curriculum perfectly designed to show you exactly what heavy stones you are still carrying, What outdated beliefs you are still clinging to? What negative feelings you are still resisting? Every moment of discomfort is a gift, a signpost pointing you directly toward your next opportunity for liberation. The ultimate power in life is not found in grasping, controlling, or holding on. It is found in the gentle, courageous, and profound act of letting go. The key is now in your hand. This simple, elegant tool of surrender does not require a special cushion, a silent room, or a designated hour of your day. It is available to you in every moment. You can practice it in a traffic jam, in a difficult meeting, in the middle of a conversation with your partner, or as you lie in bed at night. Start now. With the very next feeling that arises, a flicker of annoyance, a pang of anxiety, a wave of weariness, pause. Turn inward. Welcome the sensation. Let it be there without resistance, and allow it to pass through you, leaving you lighter and freer than you were a moment before. The beach ball is no longer being held underwater. You have finally and gracefully released your grip. Let it rise. Let it float. And feel the immense relief of being at peace, floating effortlessly on the calm, clear waters of your own being. At one with the water, the sun, and the endless sky. You are free.